Chapter 1822. Fuse. As soon as he answered Xia Shaochan, Han Fei fused with Little Black and Little White and shouted, "Girl, retreat." Song Kaiyuan gasped and shouted, "It's a wild king." Li Kaitian, retreat. Everything happened too fast. When Han Fei found that the dark mantis shrimp was using the great Tao of speed, he realized that something was wrong. After Han Fei fused with Little Black and Little White, he saw a ray of light sweeping across the sky. However, it was not light, but the dark mantis shrimp's hooking limbs, intending to split the Avenger in half. Han Fei immediately activated the great Tao of time. A blue barrier appeared directly in front of the Avenger. At this moment, everyone saw that it was a huge sickle that was charging towards them. "Oh my God!" Li Kaitian and the others couldn't help exclaiming. This scene was too horrifying to watch. The incomparably huge super forelimb was hundreds of miles long. It stretched out in front of the Avenger like a hook hanging down from the sky. Jian Hui couldn't help but hold the sword in his hand. His body became hot and his palms were sweating. Xia Shaochan's face changed greatly. So fast. Although she saw that it was a huge limb, it was not very clear. Xia Shaochan felt that if this attack was aimed at her, she would only have time to turn into a shadow at most. After the dark mantis shrimp's attack was slowed down by time, Han Fei activated his spiritual energy in an instant. Han Fei's figure appeared 100 kilometers away in an instant, holding a blue blade of light. Puff! At that moment, Han Fei extracted the power of time and slashed the limb, only to see a 7 or 8 kilometers long limb cut off. Behind Han Fei, the illusion of mountains and rivers appeared. This huge limb fell into it and was suppressed by Han Fei with a thought. "Ha! Your Excellency is a little too anxious. How can my Avengers be destroyed so easily? Have you asked me for my permission?" Gulp. Mui Shui Sisi couldn't help swallowing. Wow, is this the legendary Great Tao of Time? How could it be so tyrannical? I didn't even see that attack, and Captain actually lost a limb. Sword Regret's eyelids twitched. Too fast. Whether it was the Dark Knight Mantis shrimp strike or Han Fei's slash, they were all too fast for him to react. Judging from the intensity of the attacks from both sides, Jian Hui helplessly realized that if he were to give it his all, it would probably be the same. It would be impossible for it to be stronger. Only then did Jian Hui realize that he didn't want to compete with Han Fei. It was really ridiculous. His strongest attack was no match for his opponent's ordinary attack. How was he supposed to fight? Lu Ran and Mu Shi both widened their eyes and exchanged a look. It seemed that they could see several questions in each other's eyes that went straight to their souls. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? The hexagon starfish shuddered and rolled its 6 big eyes crazily. Is the world of the strong all like this? Isn't this strength a little too strong? If the mantis shrimp's claw slashed on my 6-gate formation, the hexagon starfish's eyes froze and he quickly came to a conclusion. I absolutely can't resist it, nor can I escape. However, such an ending seemed to be beyond the mantis shrimp's expectation. A hoarse and stiff voice sounded between heaven and earth. The Great Tao of Time. Human, have you touched the legendary level? Han Fei sneered. Legendary level? I am the legendary level. Get out of my way. Otherwise, it's hard to say who will die in the battle. Although Han Fei was a little confident, he couldn't be too tough in the face of a pioneer sea state master. If he were alone, he would definitely ignore this mantis shrimp and even take the initiative to provoke it and fight it for hundreds of rounds. However, the mantis shrimp's attack was so fast that he didn't even have time to put away the Avenger and the others. How arrogant! I'd like to see what kind of taboo the Great Tao of Time is. Bam! Bam! As soon as he said that, a pair of fist marks blasted at him at the speed of light. It was no exaggeration to say that even though Han Fei had reacted with the yin-yang divine eyes and the Great Tao of Time slowed down the speed of the 2 fists, Han Fei's body still couldn't keep up with the speed of the fists. However, Han Fei knew the mantis shrimp too well. no matter how fast your punches are. The weak points were at the very end of the forelimb, where the joints were. Therefore, Han Fei had already prepared a knife attack. Han Fei didn't know when he had been holding 2 knives in his hands. The 2 knives seemed to break through the void in an instant, turning into dazzling knife marks, and directly appeared at the very end of the mantis shrimp's joints. The dark mantis shrimp didn't expect Han Fei to be so tough. In the face of its high-speed punches, Han Fei could so calmly shatter 2 ultra-quality divine weapons and exchange blows with it. Bam! Han Fei had already predicted how strong the punch of the dark mantis shrimp would be. Under such a terrifying punching speed, he might not be able to withstand a punch at all. However, in front of the great Tao of time, it was just a matter of a wisp of chaotic energy to withstand this punch. Han Fei's body exploded in an instant. However, before Xia Shaochan and the others panicked, they saw a cluster of blue shadows emerging. Immediately afterward, Han Fei's figure appeared again. At this moment, even Han Fei couldn't help but exclaim that the time light technique was so fucking useful. Han Fei even wondered how old Monster Chu could comprehend such a great technique. Han Fei guessed that he must have obtained it from the 9-star pearl. Fortunately, old Monster Chu was killed by him. Otherwise, if that guy really became a king, not to mention the Yin-Yang heaven, even the 36 black heavens might not be able to kill him. Who on the Avenger that was retreating rapidly, everyone swallowed involuntarily. What a terrifying power. Even a freak like Han Fei was blown up in an instant. How strong was the dark mantis shrimp? The hexagon starfish murmured, "Starfish, I need to work hard on cultivation. It's too scary. This world is too scary." Xia Shaochan scolded, "Shut up. If you keep talking, I'll throw you to the battlefield." While talking, Xia Shaochan held the daggers and knives, and the blood in her body kept rising. A battle of this level had aroused her desire to fight. She was calculating that if she fused the shadow shrimp and the giant arowana at the same time after activating the heavenly cicada transformation, she should be able to fight it. However, the premise was that she couldn't be hit by the mantis shrimp. Otherwise, she might be hammered half to death with just one hit. On the other side, Han Fei blocked the blow of the dark mantis shrimp head-on. Within 10,000 kilometers, the terrifying twin hammers made the sea swirl and the waves splashed for thousands of kilometers. To the dark mantis shrimp's surprise, the yin-yang reincarnation knife also hit it. Crack poof, with only one slash, the joint of the dark mantis shrimp's forelimb was cut off by Han Fei. Not only was its forelimb cut off, but the blade of nothingness also cut its soul. Hiss roar, the dark mantis shrimp thought that it was a sea expansion realm expert. How could it be beaten to this extent by a half-king human? Immediately, it was furious. As soon as its soul collided with Han Fei's blade of nothingness, a soul explosion was set off. Just when it was about to take back its broken limb, Han Fei took a step and turned into a golden giant, with a fist mark in his hand, which was attached to an array. Sacrificing punch. Seeing that Han Fei dared to take the initiative to attack it, the dark mantis shrimp immediately hammered at him even though it only had one forelimb left. In midair, even though they were very far away, they could still see a surge of power tearing through the sky, creating a spatial crack that was thousands of miles long. Li Kaitian swallowed his saliva and said, "Should we retreat further away? This power is too terrifying. We're thousands of kilometers away, but it still hit us." Song Kaiyuan nodded. "No, just be ready to teleport at any time. The captain's strength is extraordinary. He is not at a disadvantage in this battle. Instead, he has a slight advantage. Our side has a good chance of winning." Song Kaiyuan's words shocked everyone. That was a real king in the sea expansion realm. Their captain was only a half-king, but he still had the upper hand. This put a lot of pressure on them. If their captain was too strong, they would be too weak. On the battlefield, Han Fei took the punch head-on, but he was also dripping with blood. But so what? Pucci, all of a sudden, the dark mantis shrimp was surprised to find that the broken part of its forelimb was slashed with the same blade power as just now. At the same time, another blade of nothingness slashed at the dark mantis shrimp. Seizing the opportunity, Han Fei quickly came to the broken forelimb of the dark mantis shrimp. The illusion of mountains and rivers appeared and swallowed the 100-kilometer-long forelimb into the sea, quelling painting. At this moment, Han Fei roared. Within 1,000 kilometers, the sea surged, and infinite blades soared into the sky. Under the blade of Blade Purgatory, the sea was enveloped by blade light. Holding the blade of time, Han Fei dove into the Blade Purgatory and attacked the other forelimb of the dark mantis shrimp. Han Fei roared, come on, if you dare, try to be arrogant with me again. Let's see how many lives you have. Hiss, on the other side, the dark mantis shrimp had just suppressed Han Fei's violent attack. The blade of time was too strong, and it found that it couldn't defeat it at all. Chapter 1823. Clang, 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 thousands of blades fell on the shell of the night mantis shrimp almost every second. Of course, this was nothing. No matter how strong the Blade Purgatory was, it was not strong enough to kill a king. The battle between Han Fei and the dark night mantis shrimp had just reached its climax. With the power of the yin-yang reincarnation knife, Han Fei tricked it once. But Han Fei's follow-up actions were very fast. He continuously summoned the chaotic energy and attacked with all his strength, not giving the night mantis shrimp a chance to counterattack. Pooh! Spirit's Stunning Spike and Heaven Knocking Gate were also activated at the same time. However, at this moment, a white explosion of light came crashing down from the sky. Han Fei saw that the white light seemed to be a fist mark, and he immediately thought that it must be the night mantis shrimp's universal spirit hammer. In the end, Han Fei sighed slightly. His advantage would probably be beaten back by this hammer. Han Fei immediately picked up 2 sledgehammers and smashed them across the air. Dong, 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 Han Fei glided in the sky, and the shadows of his hammers filled the sky. Down below, 10,000 miles away, Mushui Cece exclaimed, "This is, the 100 Battles Godly Hammer? The legendary top-notch hammer technique of the war giants during the Age of Chaos?" Song Kaiyuan's expression was also solemn as he said, "The super great arts of the Age of Chaos are much stronger than the great arts of the present." At that time, he would probably have to demote his current great technique by 1 level. Not only can this hammer technique be used for battle, it can also be used for forging. Its peak effect is probably not much worse than Lei Hutian's forging technique. Li Kaitian said in surprise, "You're fighting the king of the giant beasts alone? If Captain were to transcend the tribulation and become a king, how strong would he be?" Suddenly, Mu Shi said, "Xia Shaochan is missing." Xia Shaochan didn't formally introduce herself to these people. When she wanted to hide, it would be hard for Song Kaiyuan and the others to discover her. Usually, if one didn't deliberately pay attention, it would be difficult to notice that she was gone. As soon as Mu Shi's voice fell, a strange cicada cry came from the battlefield. Amidst the blades that filled the sky, there were many colors that looked like colored glaze. Then, everyone saw countless colorful lights flashing on the back of the night mantis shrimp. When he took a closer look, what kind of light was that? It was clearly an optical illusion created by a person moving too fast. Hiss! Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't help but look at each other. Mu Shui Cece exclaimed in surprise, "Really? Another half-martial king that can defeat kings?" Song Kaiyuan shook his head. "We haven't reached that point yet." Xia Shaochan was holding a sea-quelling bizarre treasure in her hand, and sharp metal energy rushed into the night mantis shrimp's body. Besides, due to her special identity, her spiritual beast is only powerful enough to break the shell of the night mantis shrimp. Swish! While everyone was talking, a figure shot out of the ship with a whoosh. Lu Ran shouted, "Jian Hui, why are you joining in the fun again?" However, Li Kaitian grinned. "Don't stop him. A half-king fighting a king. If he missed this opportunity, there would be no more." Sword regret, this fellow, had been fervently brewing his sword intent since just now. He won't stop until he slashes out with his sword. Boom, 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 the hammer in the sky was hit by Han Fei's twin hammers 100 times in a row and finally completely penetrated. However, the two sledgehammers in Han Fei's hands were also blocked. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. It seems that ultra-quality divine weapons are completely not enough. It's a waste of weapons to fight with kings. Or rather, it's a waste of weapons to fight with such special behemoth kings. He had already destroyed 4 of these supreme-grade divine weapons. This is not enough. Han Fei looked at Xia Shaochan, who turned into a stream of light on the back of the night mantis shrimp, lifting countless pieces of flesh and blood. The speed of the heavenly cicada transformation gave Xia Shaochan at this moment a huge force of at least 30,000 waves. And this night mantis shrimp didn't specialize in physical strength but just had its own shell. Therefore, it couldn't completely stop Xia Shaochan. However, Han Fei immediately said to her via voice transmission, "Girl, retreat." Han Fei's voice reminded Xia Shaochan. Colorful light appeared all over the sky, and Xia Shaochan flashed hundreds of times in an irregular route in a breath. Hiss roar, the night mantis shrimp had never experienced this before. If the other party was also in the sea expansion realm, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, the other party clearly only had the strength of a half-king. Was he beaten by a group of half-kings? He felt that his dignity had been insulted. His body suddenly rolled up, and his huge body turned into a super-huge ball. On his body, the thorns that had been dormant were exposed at this moment. Within 1,000 kilometers, thousands of rolling thorns appeared. Although Xia Shaochan had retreated fast enough, she couldn't catch up with the night mantis shrimp's attack range. Fortunately, Xia Shaochan's reaction speed was relatively fast, and her unusually agile speed allowed her to avoid this weird attack. But Han Fei saw that this should be the universe-piercing technique of this night mantis shrimp. He quickly came to Xia Shaochan, took her hand, and crossed 1,000 kilometers in one step, leaving this side of the battlefield. At this time, Han Fei saw a sword chi soaring into the sky, crossing thousands of kilometers. Oh, no, it was brought here by Sword Regret from thousands of kilometers away. When Sword Regret approached Han Fei, he instantly drew his sword. Where Han Fei was should be the limit of his distance to the night mantis shrimp. If he went any closer, he would be courting death. Anyway, the body of the night mantis shrimp was too big, and Sword Regret was not afraid of missing. Huh? Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. The sword chi of Sword Regret was so powerful. In terms of the power of this blow alone, it was comparable to the blow of a king like the White Armor Emperor. This strength was indeed terrifying. Even Xia Shaochan was surprised. This guy is so strong. Even I may not be able to block this sword strike. Han Fei shook his head slightly. With his physique and strength, he can only make one sword strike at most. You stay here, and I'll go chop this shrimp. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei saw Sword Regret's sword strike, and the yin-yang reincarnation knife was still erupting on the battlefield. Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed a big wine pot. Xia Shaochan recognized it at a glance. Wasn't that the big gourd that Han Fei picked up behind the bronze gate? How could it be used as a weapon? However, Han Fei held the gourd and said, "Big, big, big." However, the gourd didn't respond. Han Fei immediately added, "Kill him. It'll go with your wine." The gourd in Han Fei's hand suddenly became much fatter, from a half-foot-long gourd to a 100-meter-long gourd. The gourd continued to grow and suddenly became thousands of meters long. When the gourd was about to strike down, its body had grown to a terrifying size of more than 30 kilometers. Not to mention Xia Shaochan and the others, even Han Fei himself was dumbfounded. At this time, the gourd broke through the void, detonating the void, and flames swept the sky. The dark night mantis shrimp thought to itself, "It's just a gourd. How can it turn the sky upside down? I'll smash it with one blow." Rumble, however, when the two collided, the entire body of the dark night mantis shrimp was deformed. More than half of the dark night mantis shrimp's carapace collapsed in an instant with a series of cracking sounds. Not good. In this terrifying explosion, Xia Shaochan and Sword Regret consciously retreated. The two of them couldn't bear this thing. At this time, the immature knife technique of the yin-yang reincarnation knife continued to erupt. In an instant, a section of the mantis shrimp's body was cut off. Bam! The gigantic mantis shrimp suddenly turned into a cloud of mist. On the Avenger, the group of people looked at each other in shock. Li Kaitian exclaimed, "Wow! This is the Dark Knight mantis shrimp dead?" Lu Ren exclaimed, "Seriously? Did the captain kill a king?" Song Kaiyuan nodded. "There were no weather changes." "I don't think so." At the scene, Han Fei frowned and saw the wine gourd open the stopper by itself. A huge section of the mantis shrimp's body was completely swallowed by this guy. Amidst the exploding fog, a young man dressed in black and wearing a white cloak could be seen. One of his arms was rapidly growing, and so were his two legs. This person looked at Han Fei across the air. Although he was reluctant, he could only flee with a dark face. This time, Han Fei didn't chase him. If he continued to fight, his Dao wouldn't be able to hold on. When the time was up, he would be even less of a match for this guy. Coincidentally, the half-baked yin-yang reincarnation knife burst out again at this moment, and the eyelids of the black-clothed young man twitched. Swish! When the black-clothed man disappeared in the void, the gourd also returned to its previous size. "You swallowed the mountain-like body of a king. How much did you leave for me?" Han Fei was speechless. "Big brother. Brother, I fought so hard and only got a plucked limb. You fucking broke a small part of your body." Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. It was a pity that he didn't have enough chaotic energy. Otherwise, his chaotic energy would immediately soar to more than 4,000 wisps. When he became a king, he might have more than 5,000 wisps. It was a pity that it was just a plucked limb. It would be great if it had a few dozen wisps of chaotic energy. Han Fei returned from the center of the battlefield. Everyone looked at him as if he were a monster. Li Kaitian asked curiously, "Is the captain dead?" Han Fei said grumpily, "Dead? He ran away." Phew! Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he ran away. Otherwise, this captain of theirs would probably be able to kill a king by now. If the captain was so strong, why would he need the crew? Even so, they couldn't express their shock. A half-king had beaten a king away. If word of this got out, who would believe it? Han Fei said grumpily, "Continue to teleport. Half a day later, we'll have mantis shrimp hot pot." Chapter 1824. Although some beast kings had been driven away, Han Fei didn't dare to stay too long on the Nine Palace Sky route. Who knew how many good friends he had? If they agreed to attack together, there would be no way to fight. Half a day later, the Avenger broke through the void and appeared on a relatively peaceful route. On this route, there were more kinds of sea creatures, and the pressure around them was gone. This was the common route of the Golden Crow Heaven. Because it was a common route, all the major pirate groups used it. The way to the Martial Emperor City was not a secret, and it could only be taken by the common route. Therefore, at this moment, Han Fei and the others had already gotten rid of the danger of the Nine Palace Sky route. At this moment, Han Fei was deboning. He had cut off a complete stolen limb and brought back a stump, absorbing a total of 37 wisps of chaotic energy. At this moment, the hot pot was boiling. Baji, however, at this moment, Han Fei was eating alone. Including Xia Shaochan and the hexagon starfish. Everyone was already sitting cross-legged. Even though they were already half-beast kings, they couldn't bear eating 3 pots of king meat in a row. Of course, this meat couldn't directly help them break through. Xia Shaochan was the first to wake up. Then, Sword Regret and the others woke up one after another. Han Fei said, "In another 3 days at most, we will reach the outskirts of Martial Emperor City. There are still about 15 days before the so-called invincible inheritance. In the next 15 days, it's time for you to start playing your role." Song Kaiyuan said, Captain, the Martial Emperor City also has countless resources. Should we land in the Martial Emperor City first, take a look at the city, and then plunder? Song Kaiyuan knew that Han Fei had the intention to plunder. For Han Fei, he could plunder anyone in the entire chaotic ocean. Song Kaiyuan even felt that with Han Fei's character, if he stayed in the chaotic ocean for a long time, he would definitely be among the top 10 pirate groups. If Han Fei made a breakthrough, he might even be among the top 3. Golden Crow Heaven, on the normal sailing route. A ship made of red and yellow wood and inlaid with various special metals was slowly approaching. The captain was about 300 meters long, and there were as many as 21 venerable realm powerhouses on it. There was a sea expansion realm expert. At this moment, 2 young men were chatting at the bow of the ship. One of them was Xia Hai. One of them said, Brother Hai, I heard that the Martial Emperor City didn't reject anyone this time. Why are there so few people from our Golden Crow Heaven? Xia Hai chuckled. How could they all come at once? What kind of place was Martial Emperor City? The battle outside Martial Emperor City was endless, and the situation was treacherous. Unless a king comes to hunt us, it's extremely difficult for anyone to hunt us. So, we will go first. The real main force was still behind. It was said that Golden Crow Heaven had nearly 300 people on this trip. This number is already quite a lot. It already accounts for a small half of our Golden Crow Heavenly Venerables. Another person said with a smile, looks like the Martial Emperor's inheritance this time will be a fierce battle. If so many people from every clan came, wouldn't the Martial Emperor City become the place with the most prodigies in the entire chaotic Azure Ocean? Xia Hai laughed. What do you think? Even without us going, Martial Emperor City is still the place with the most venerables in the chaotic Azure Ocean. Let's not talk about the 10 great pirate crews for now. Just the number of venerables from the 36 mysterious heavens and various races that have escaped over the years is uncountable. Another person said, I'm afraid there won't be many true prodigies this time. Last time, even Beitang Xian was seriously injured in the land of the king perished. I heard that he won't be able to come this time. Other than Wu Hao, Brother Hai, you are the best among all the prodigies. Humph. Xia Hai couldn't help but think of Shui Zhan's damned mask. The land of the king perished was an accident. Someone who shouldn't have snuck in, that bastard even abducted the merfolk royal family's princess. This time, it didn't matter even if they ran into each other. Because the Martial Emperor's inheritance shouldn't have a situation where powerhouses would clash. After all, an inheritance was an inheritance. It depended on who had more potential. This time, his chances were high. However, he had to admit that Shui Zhan wasn't easy to deal with. What a pity. How did that guy manage to sneak into the land of the king perished? How good would it be if he was killed? All of a sudden, the air trembled. Everyone saw a large black ship emerging from the void. Instantly, there was a commotion on the Golden Crow Sky's ship. It's the pirates. The Skull Flag. It's the Avengers. Prepare the fire essence cannons. Bang! However, before the Golden Crow Sky could make a move, the bow of the Avengers began to change shape. The bow opened up like the sharp teeth of a shark. A black bronze cannon barrel appeared. With a whoosh, a golden light shot out. Bang! Boom! Waves surged into the sky. A giant fire bird soared into the sky above the Golden Crow Sky's ship. Boom! A terrifying Taoist rhyme that surpassed the power of a half-martial monarch surged out along with spiritual chi and bombarded the Golden Crow Sky's ship. However, the giant bird was covered in fire elemental energy. After 2 consecutive attacks, it was unable to break through the Golden Crow Sky's ship formation. Ha! He had thought that the rumored Avenger was very powerful. Turns out they're just a so-so. Compared to our energy cannons, their energy cannons aren't much stronger. After all, they're just a small pirate group that's in the limelight. Destroy them. Xia Hai's eyes were cold as he shouted in a low voice, this Avengers is the culprit who killed Gold Yuan. How dare they rob the Golden Crow Sky today? Kill. Bam! This time, it was the fire essence cannon's turn to hit the Avengers. However, it was even more exaggerated this time. The Avengers clashed head-on with the fire essence cannon. The bow of the ship flickered, and the entire Avengers emerged from the billowing waves of fire. Seeing that the enemy's ship formation was not scary, Han Fei directly attacked. Han Fei broke through the void and slashed with his knife. The wings of the huge fire bird formation were directly broken. Hiss! At this moment, on the Golden Crow Sky, a half-martial monarch exclaimed, "Not good, this man actually broke 30% of the Golden Crow formation with one slash. What kind of strength is this?" Xia Hai immediately took out a jade slip and shouted in a low voice, "Hold on. As long as you hold on for 5 minutes, when the King of Fire arrives, these people won't be able to escape." Xia Hai thought that as long as they could hold Han Fei for 5 minutes, it would be enough. Even this ship formation could last for 20 breaths of time. However, when Han Fei slapped the Golden Crow Sky's ship formation more than 20 times in a row with terrifying power, Xia Hai's face changed. This man is so strong. In terms of strength, he is more than several times stronger than ordinary half-martial monarchs. At the moment when the ship formation was broken, the 21 people on the Golden Crow Sky all fused with their spiritual beasts at the same time, ready for a full-scale battle. Xia Hai, on the other hand, crushed a jade slip in his hand. Anyway, he just needed to wait for the King of Fire to arrive. If he resisted, he would be injured and lose the opportunity to obtain the Martial Emperor's inheritance. Wouldn't it be a pity? He might as well block this man with a king's strike first. However, a figure wrapped in a fireball appeared in the void, blocking Han Fei's way. But Han Fei didn't panic. He shouted unhurriedly, "You want to enter the Avengers? It's time to test your strength. Attack and rob them for me." At this moment, Song Kaiyuan and the others had already practiced the deceiving precious technique. After changing their appearances, Xia Hai and the others couldn't see them at all. Besides, the Grand Mystic Palace, the Azure Glaze Palace, and the other 2 immortal palaces rarely showed up in the 36 mysterious heavens. Except for the place where the king perished once, they hadn't seen each other for hundreds of years. Of course, Xia Hai and the others didn't know what methods they had. Therefore, when fighting, they weren't afraid of exposing anything. Li Kaitian immediately roared, put away his rod, and took out 2 big axes. In addition to his rod skills, his axe blades were also unparalleled. At this moment, the giant axe was like a 100-meter-tall giant striking with all its strength, and the axe light fell from the sky, extremely sharp. Falling fire, heavenly fire meteor technique. The heavenly talent of the Golden Crow Sky was naturally not weak. One of them was good at using shields. With a chain of fire shields in front of him, heavenly fire fell from behind and locked onto Li Kaitian. However, he underestimated Li Kaitian's ability. Naturally, he couldn't show his strength when fighting with Han Fei. However, when fighting with ordinary Demi-King level cultivators, Li Kaitian stacked his double axes and penetrated with 6 layers of divine power. With a bang, this person was directly smashed into pieces. As for the fire meteorites behind him, Li Kaitian roared and a gelatinous shield shadow appeared, which remained intact no matter how the heavenly fire rained on it. And Sword Regret was quite relaxed. He had already been preparing his sword intent, and as soon as he slashed out, brilliance flashed. One person was killed, and a sun-moon shell fell into his hand. Lu Ran used her jade palm to crush one of the cultivators and his spiritual beast tortoise. Even Mu Shi, because she had prepared in advance and fused with her spiritual beast early. A thing called the jellyfish fairy had a thorn that could imprison the opponent in the first place. Immediately afterward, a white sword shadow appeared, and this person was also cut into pieces. Mu Shui Cece held a big bow in her hand, shot into the air, and there was a phoenix flying. Among the arrow patterns, there was an array superimposed. How could a woman who was spoiled by the academy not have any strength? At this time, Song Kaiyuan's sky-severing brush pierced out, directly encircling the three opponents into his domain. When the brush was drawn, there was an azure dragon, and when there was sword chi, there was sword chi. Facing Song Kaiyuan's stormy brush, these three people were blown up in an instant. At this moment, half of the powerhouses on the Golden Crow sky ship were blown up immediately. Instead, he said leisurely, "This is a robbery. Hand over the Sun Moon shell, and I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, I'll kill you all." First. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1825. Xia Hai thought he was very strong, but he didn't know that no one on the Avenger was weaker than him. Xia Hai bellowed, "Don't hold back, everyone. Hold on. You're all half-kings. Don't tell me you can't even hold on for 5 minutes." However, after Xia Hai roared, his eyes suddenly blurred. Xia Hai's heart skipped a beat. Immediately afterward, Xia Hai felt a sharp pain in his spirit. His body split apart involuntarily. He immediately realized that there was a problem with his shadow. Something was cutting his shadow. Without hesitation, Xia Hai launched a divine soul attack, instantly unleashing a soul explosion in an attempt to force Xia Shaochan out. However, a dragon's roar was heard. The dragon's roar exploded. Xia Hai felt his head was buzzing. He didn't have time to think. He didn't even know where the enemy was. The power of the fire element was detonated immediately, and the terrifying temperature swept across the world. However, in the midst of the flames, the shadow of a purple shield appeared and completely withstood his high-temperature attack. This was the defense array of the hexagon starfish, but Xia Hai couldn't see it. Puff, there was a flash of light, and Xia Hai's entire body was sliced into pieces. His divine soul, flesh, and blood were all shattered. In just a single exchange and a moment of carelessness, a dignified half-monarch had fallen to such a state. And the flame shadow in the sky glanced at the one-sided situation below and wanted to go down to help, but a fist shadow came at him. Boom! Under the punch, the strike of a king was immediately annihilated. The golden crows below were dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Is Han Fei so strong? Not only is Han Fei's strength so terrifying that he can compete with a king, but the Golden Crows found that the strength of everyone on the Avenger was actually the strongest among the heavenly talents. The situation was almost one-sided. In such a situation, how could he fight back? At this time, someone below finally couldn't bear it anymore. Someone shouted, "You just want the Sun Moon shell. Don't kill me. I'll give it to you." Han Fei sneered. "I'm going to rob this ship. Everyone." Li Kaitian shouted, "Didn't you hear? We also took the ship." Han Fei casually pointed at Xia Hai's position and gave him another blow, heavily injuring Xia Hai, who had been reborn. A moment later, only 21 Golden Crow Heaven experts were left. They didn't even have a ship. The battle went on for 15 breaths before a fire-attributed shadow descended from the sky. The man shouted, "Where is he?" Xia Hai's face paled. "How the hell am I supposed to explain this?" He stammered, "Flame King, that Avenger group was too strong. We were completely wiped out. The Sun Moon shell and the ship have been robbed." As they spoke, everyone lowered their heads. It was simply too embarrassing. 21 of them had failed to stop 8 people. They had been slaughtered to the point where they couldn't even find their bearings anymore. The Flame Emperor's face darkened. "You're saying that so many of you were wiped out by 8 people in 30 breaths of time?" The Flame Emperor could not help but doubt the strength of Xia Hai and the others. Xia Hai's voice was calm and unhurried. "I've used your power, but..." The Flame Emperor raised his eyebrows. "But what? You're stammering. Just say it." Xia Hai said in a low voice, "They were defeated by Han Fei, the Avenger, in one move." The Flame Emperor, this time, the Flame Emperor had to take it seriously. This Avengers pirate group was originally a small pirate group that did not stand out. Although there was some news about them, they shouldn't be this strong, right? Didn't Han Fei, the Avenger, only have the strength of a half-king? What's going on? Even a half-martial king can easily sweep away my attack. The Flame Emperor pondered for a moment. I'm afraid this Avenger is not simple. It can block my attack, which means that Han Fei has probably passed the tribulation and become a king. Plus, someone from the Martial Emperor city captured him with 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures, which is enough to prove this. Seeing that Xia Hai seemed to be seriously injured, the Flame Emperor couldn't help but snort and throw out a third tribulation pill. Eat it. The Martial Emperor's inheritance is near. It's not a good thing to be injured now. Then, the Flame Emperor threw out a ship and said, "You don't have any clones, so I won't give you anything, lest you get robbed again. Just go. When we reach the Martial Emperor city, I'll give you some resources." After all, the Avenger is not a bloodthirsty group. Otherwise, you would have been slaughtered by now. That would be tragic. What could Xia Hai and the others do? This was the only way. It was fortunate that the Avenger did not make a move. Otherwise, they would have been dead by now. On the other side, Xia Shaochan asked curiously, "Why did you leave them all alive?" Han Fei smiled. "Although we made many enemies this time, there's no need to kill them yet. If we slaughter Xia Hai and the others now, the Golden Crow Heavenly King will definitely be furious. Maybe he will look for us all over the map to settle the score. At that time, he will interfere with our robbery. Also, Xia Hai and the others didn't make any big mistakes for me. I'm not a bloodthirsty person. Why should I kill them now?" Xia Shaochan rolled her eyes. "Then don't let the God's Bane Heaven people go." Han Fei immediately slapped his thigh and said, "That's impossible. If the God's Bane Heaven dares to come, I dare to wipe them all out." 1 day later. Han Fei happened to leave the Golden Crow Heavenly King's route. Song Kaiyuan said, "Within 30 million kilometers of the Martial Emperor city, there is no such thing as a route. This is the free war zone. Here, Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators are not allowed to attack. In other words, Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators can only attack Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators." Han Fei said, "I'm not a Pioneer Sea Realm cultivator, am I?" Song Kaiyuan was silent for a moment and said, "Well, I don't know if I can be counted as a Pioneer Sea Realm cultivator, but I don't think so." Han Fei sneered. "Anyway, I won't do anything. Try to let you do the looting later. Here are your spoils of war, a total of 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones and 38 ultra-quality divine weapons. The total value of all kinds of resources is estimated to be 300,000. Mu Shui Cece exclaimed, "Ah! So much?" Han Fei said, "The crew members of the Avenger deserve a little more. From today on, for every ship we loot, you can divide 20% of the resources." Hiss, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Only 20% of the resources? Didn't this mean that Han Fei had obtained 5 million ultra-quality spiritual stones from this looting? Han Fei sighed in his heart. These children of the big clans are really rich. A random loot can get them millions of resources. If I loot 3 ships a day, I'll be rich in 3 to 5 days. Han Fei tried it with the 9-palace ruler of fortune and found that it was an auspicious hexagram. Satisfied, he began to choose with the nautical panorama. At this moment, Han Fei calculated in his heart and read silently, except for the 4 glass palaces, the Snow God clan, and the myriad poison palace, all the immortal palaces, including the 100 demons, the mermaids, and the top 10 pirate groups, are included. Where's the closest and richest family? The reason why he excluded the Myriad Poison Palace was that Han Fei felt that the Myriad Poison ancestor might have discovered his identity. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he'd better forget it. Han Fei didn't know which ship he would loot. In any case, with the nautical panorama to guide the way, they could only blame it on their bad luck. The Avenger, at this moment, opened its hunting claws and teeth, like a dormant beast, and began to attack everywhere. The big ship could travel 500,000 or 600,000 kilometers through the void with a single teleportation. The periphery of the martial emperor city was a free battle zone. Here, the ship's direction would not be affected, so when Han Fei obtained the nautical panorama, he was destined to become a hunter. On the ship of the Medicine King Heaven, a group of as many as 32 people came by ship. All 32 of them were half-monarch realm experts. From the name of the Medicine King Heaven, one must not think that it was a place to train alchemists. In fact, it was precisely because there were many alchemists in the Medicine King Heaven, so there were more and more powerhouses. Apart from alchemy, the people of the Medicine King Heaven also dabbled in a variety of things. They would not specialize in a single combat skill or technique. At this moment, on the bow deck, everyone in the Medicine King Heaven knew that they were about to arrive at the martial emperor city. For people like them, such opportunities were few and far between. A place like the martial emperor city was usually not a place they would come to. This time, they had the opportunity to participate in the martial emperor's inheritance, and they had been carefully selected. At this moment, everyone in the Medicine King Heaven was looking forward to it. At the bow, a woman said, "Mu Qin, this is a rare opportunity to come to the martial emperor city. It is said that anything can be traded here. We have to change the ingredients for our 5th-grade tribulation pills." The young man nodded. "It's time to let them see the strength of the Medicine King Heaven." All of a sudden, a giant black ship appeared out of thin air. Most people were still wondering who it was, and why it suddenly appeared. However, when someone saw the pirate's skull flag, they immediately cried out in surprise. "Pirates, it's the Avenger." Someone thought, "Not good. This is the free battle zone. How dare they rob here? Do they have the backing of a king?" On the big ship of the Medicine King Heaven, a middle-aged man stood proudly in the void. "The Avenger? Robbing in front of me? Aren't they a bit too arrogant?" Han Fei laughed. "The Medicine King Heaven, is it? Hand over 5 million ultra-quality spirit stones and 3 third-grade tribulation pills, and you can pass." Han Fei's asking price was twice that of robbing the Golden Crow Heaven. However, there was a king here. So, it was normal to ask for more. The king of the Medicine King Heaven sneered. "I'm afraid you haven't woken up yet. A mere half-king dares to speak so arrogantly to me? Your subordinates are only 7.5 kings, and you want to rob the Medicine King Heaven? Where did you get the courage? Hee. If you don't want to hand over, then let's fight. Cut the crap." In the free battle zone, although Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators were not allowed to attack at will, there was an exception. If you wanted to rob someone, then Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators could attack unconditionally. After all, if you want to rob me, I can't just watch as my people are robbed, right? Han Fei slashed at the big ship of the Medicine King Heaven with his twin sabers, not at all reasonable and brainless. Han Fei thought to himself, "Since I'm here, how can I go back empty-handed?" Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1826. The Yin-Yang reincarnation knife slashed at the Medicine King's ship. This was an attack equivalent to a Pioneer Sea cultivator. Even if the ship could withstand it once or twice, how could it withstand 5, 6, 7, or 8 attacks? The king of the Medicine King's heart trembled when he saw that Han Fei could unleash such terrifying power. The strength of the leader of the Avengers was indeed terrifying. He was only a half-king. Below, there was a series of bangs as Li Kaitian fired his cannons. Xia Shaochan didn't want to use the celestial cicada transformation at this moment. Anything could happen in the free battle zone of Martial Emperor City. The celestial cicada transformation was her final trump card, so she naturally wouldn't use it unless necessary. Above, Han Fei turned into a golden giant, his fists forming the sacrificing punch and soul explosion divine stab. The king of the Medicine King's great Tao was fire control. Although it was a purple extraordinary fire, when the extraordinary fire poured over Han Fei, he found that Han Fei was completely fearless. The super-huge force of nearly 100,000 waves alone was more than 10,000 kilometers. Han Fei and the king of the Medicine King Celestial flew into the void. However, just as the two of them entered the void, they heard two buzzing sounds. The king of the Medicine King Celestial and Han Fei had both projected clones. These two clones both had the strength of a half-king. The king of the Medicine King Celestial was surprised. "You can also project clones?" Han Fei grinned. "I knew that you Pioneer Sea cultivators weren't that reliable. You wanted to secretly project a clone. Unfortunately, you ran into me. This place is forbidden." With Han Fei's shout, the sky full of flames suddenly extinguished. Han Fei took the opportunity to use the heaven-knocking gate with his rod. However, this heaven-knocking gate was not aimed at the king's projection, but at the Medicine King's ship formation. On the Medicine King's ship, Mu Qin shouted, "Everyone, prepare for battle." They couldn't help but be nervous. Han Fei's combat power was comparable to a Pioneer Sea cultivator, so they had to fight the rest of the battle themselves. Although there was no reason for them to lose against 7 people, this was outside Martial Emperor City. However, they were outside of Martial Emperor City, so they might not only encounter the Avengers. Perhaps the other side had accomplices. Suddenly, Han Fei's knife flashed with a dazzling white light. As soon as the saber appeared, a large hole was torn in the ship formation. The girl beside Mu Chen said with a grave expression, "This strange saber light has already appeared 3 times. No one noticed it at all. The ship's energy consumption is extremely fast. Why don't we fight a quick battle and take them down first?" Right at this moment, the two of them saw a tyrannical piercing attack above the formation of ships. Mu Chen's face fell. He grabbed the woman beside him and retreated. Crack bang, a large hole appeared in the formation of ships. Someone exclaimed in shock, Is this person even half a king? You actually have the time to be distracted while fighting the old ancestor?" Someone shouted, "Quick, replenish your energy. As long as we can't take them down in 100 breaths, they will retreat." However, at this moment, a scream came from the helm of the ship, from the eye of the formation that was controlling the ship. Here, the entire place exploded. There were thousands of light threads, which were clearly the slash marks left by the saber. Soon after, the Medicine King Dome's ship formation was broken, and there was nothing left to hide. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Mu Qin shouted, "Oh no, someone has snuck in." On the other side, a dazzling sword aura swept across the sky. An abnormally tall and burly man from the Medicine King's sky pressed his armor box on the deck. Armor Dao combo. Swish, 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 in an instant, a total of 36 identical shields were placed at the bow of the ship. Clang crack, 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 everyone's heart skipped a beat when they heard this. Every time a layer of armor was broken, everyone was shocked. Someone exclaimed, "How is this possible?" 15 layers of Qiu Yi's consecutive cross were broken in a row. The opponent's attack has probably reached the level of a king's attack. The cracking sound rang out 23 times in a row. Just when everyone thought that the attack was over, another dazzling white light bloomed. Someone exclaimed, "Where did this saber light come from? Why is it erupting again in less than a breath's time?" Crack, 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 the last dozen or so barriers of the Armor Dao consecutive cross were shattered in one blow. Li Kaitian roared, "Kill! Glass merciful hand! Sky falling bow!" Dragons and snakes, on the Avenger, the 6 people attacked with all their strength. Those who could be sent to the ship by the 4 immortal palace masters were all the top super experts of their respective palaces. The combat power that the 6 of them burst out in an instant was incomparable to that of ordinary demi-kings. They found that none of them were a match for them. And Xia Shaochan, who had already slipped onto the ship, held 2 daggers in her hands. When she reappeared, she had already killed the 6th person. In the sky, the Patriarch of the Medicine King Dome was shocked to see this scene. Are all the heavenly talents on the Avenger of this level? Any one of them is comparable to the strongest heavenly talent of the Medicine King Dome? Isn't this a bit too shocking? After a moment, Li Kaitian shouted, hand over the Sun Moon shell, or don't blame me for being cruel. Then Li Kaitian looked at Jian Hui. I've got 3. Jian Hui replied indifferently, 5. Li Kaitian, the patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom saw that the situation was hopeless and thought that with him watching over them, nothing would happen. Unexpectedly, he couldn't escape in the end. You've gone too far. Avenger, Han Fei, you've pushed me too far. Up in the sky, the patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom swallowed a spiritual pill. Han Fei glanced at the pill and saw that there seemed to be 5 tribulation patterns on it. Roar! Suddenly, Han Fei felt that the strength of the guy opposite him had skyrocketed. That oppressive might actually somewhat forced him to do so. The old turtle said, alchemists will always refine some medicinal pills that increase one's strength by sacrificing one's vitality. Look at this guy, his strength has probably skyrocketed by 50%. Let's not fight. In fact, the moment the person swallowed the pill, the void behind Han Fei exploded. Han Fei shouted at the Avenger, all crew, evacuate. The patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom said, don't you think it's too late to leave now? This person's strength had skyrocketed, so had his ego. In an instant, he chased after Han Fei, intending to kill him. However, Han Fei clenched his fist. The fist was followed by thousands of swords. Humph! How can this little trick save your life? With a bang, Han Fei was blasted 100 miles away. However, the tens of thousands of small swords suddenly exploded, and a thick gray mist almost enveloped the patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom. Ew! The patriarch immediately felt sick. Fuck, I've never smelled such a stench in my life. It was so stinky that his scalp went numb. It was even worse than a great poison. Just as Han Fei was about to attack again, he suddenly sensed that 3 large ships had appeared. There were more than 100 people on the 3 ships. And their symbol was a blood-red scythe. Immediately, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. The Azura pirates? The patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom, who had just broken free from the stench, clearly also sensed the Azura pirates. At that time, his heart had turned cold. The Avenger pirates, not even one of the top 10 pirate groups, were already so difficult to deal with. What would the Azura pirate crew look like if that happened? However, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Hey! Damn it, the Avenger pirates don't kill people. However, the Azura pirate group practically left no survivors wherever they went. Why don't we work together? The patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom wanted to slap Han Fei to death. You've already done this much, and you still want to work together? The patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom shouted coldly, do you think I'll believe you? Han Fei sneered and said, do you want to see the heaven of medicine kings being slaughtered? I don't believe you haven't heard of Pei Qianying. Look at the Avenger pirates. Did they really slaughter the Medicine Kingdom alone? Han Fei wasn't afraid that the patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom wouldn't agree. He continued, as long as you give me 2 of those 5th-grade pills, I can help you once. The patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom's expression changed drastically. 5th-grade Dao pattern pills. You really want them? Han Fei shrugged. Compared to your entire ship of heavenly talents, 2 5th-grade Dao pattern pills is a bargain. The patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom didn't think too much, because he could see the Azura pirates' fleet moving through the void. He threw a bottle of pills over. I'll give you another one after you win. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. This robbery was worth it. Han Fei had seen the effects of the pills just now. Increasing his strength by 50%, the Medicine Kingdom's old man's strength skyrocketed. Immediately, Han Fei said telepathically, everyone, don't just stand there. Cooperate with the Medicine Kingdom and fight the Azura pirates together. On the Medicine Kingdom's side, the patriarch of the Medicine Kingdom also said telepathically, everyone, return to your positions. The Azura pirates are here. Get ready to fight. Temporarily cooperate with the Avenger, huh? Below, both Han Fei's side and the Medicine Kingdom's side were dumbfounded. Just now, they were fighting to the death. On his side, half of his people had already been robbed, and now they were working together. At that moment, 3 huge ships appeared in the void. The appearance of the blood-colored scythe flag made many experts of the Medicine Kingdom cheer. It's the Azura pirates. So many people. Get ready to fight. Remember, don't hold back. These Azura pirates kill without batting an eye. Don't hold back. On the leading ship, a man dressed in a black and red robe held a sickle in one hand. He laughed coldly and said, "What a great Avengers pirate group. You dare to steal the prey that my Shura pirate group has set its eyes on. How dare they?" Third Watch. Vote Smita, end of this chapter. Chapter 1827. The 3 ships of the Azura pirates circled around. Pei Qianying, the captain of the Azura pirates, had already seen the battle between Han Fei and the Patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven. Unfortunately, he was one step too late. He saw Han Fei being knocked back 100 kilometers by the Patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven. Therefore, he thought that this kid's physique was extraordinary and that he could block a blow from a king. However, Pei Qianying was no fool. Since the Avengers dared to rob the ships of the Medicine King Heaven, they must have some tricks up their sleeves. Therefore, before the battle began, he said, "Han Fei of the Avengers, right?" Han Fei pretended to be serious. Pei Qianying. Pei Qianying didn't care that Han Fei called him by his name. "You know that the Medicine King Heaven is the prey of the Azura pirates?" Han Fei shrugged. "What do you think?" Pei Qianying sneered. "Ha! Kid, you're quite arrogant, aren't you? Never mind, as long as you contribute all the resources you plundered to the Azura pirates, I will let you go. After all, I prefer pirates." Han Fei sneered. "And if I don't?" Pei Qianying sneered. "Don't? Just based on the few people from the Avengers? What a joke. Ha ha ha." Following Pei Qianying's laughter, everyone on the 3 ships of the Azura pirates began to laugh. Below, Song Kaiyuan and the others looked solemn. They couldn't laugh. This was one of the top 10 pirate groups. The Azura pirates were the most ruthless. They left no survivors when they plundered. Their captain, Pei Qianying, was even more ruthless. It could be said that among the top 10 pirate groups, they were the most ruthless. Han Fei said leisurely, "So what if we have fewer people? My Avengers can take on 10 of them. Are you convinced?" With that, Han Fei hurriedly looked at the Patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven. "Pei Qianying is yours." The Patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven had no choice but to trust Han Fei. After all, the Avengers didn't kill anyone from the Medicine King Heaven during the raid. It was exactly because of this that he chose to cooperate with Han Fei. The people he had brought with him were all prodigies of the Medicine Kingdom. If he died here, it would be a great loss to the Medicine Kingdom. The Medicine King Patriarch nodded, and Han Fei snickered. "Pei Qianying, right? You dare to laugh at me? I don't even know who you are." After that, Han Fei's voice was like a dragon's roar, like thunder, falling on the sea. "Kill. Leave no one alive." Pei Qianying was stunned. He couldn't help but laugh. "So, the Avengers are a bunch of brainless pirates. Kill." Pei Qianying didn't take Han Fei seriously. Since Han Fei refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, he might as well kill them. Buzz, Han Fei took the lead. The yin-yang reincarnation knife was the first to slash at a big boat, and Han Fei said, "Girl, you and Song Kaiyuan attack the same boat." Song Kaiyuan immediately sent a voice transmission, "Be careful, the Azura pirates' fleet cannot be destroyed easily. There's Azura blood poison on their boat. If you are stained by the filthy blood, it may infiltrate your bloodline and cause a great damage." Han Fei's heart thumped. "Don't worry, just kill them." Han Fei sneered inwardly. The last thing he feared was filth and evil. With the purification power of the Heaven Awakening divine art, how could he be stained by mere filth? Fuse. Xia Shaochan fused with the giant arowana, and her combat power increased. The moment the yin-yang reincarnation knife slashed out, she also attacked. Han Fei, on the other hand, punched at another big ship. The Azura pirate team's ship formation turned into a bloody mist. The blood mist seemed to be corroding the surroundings. Heaven awakening divine art, buzz, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 white beams of light descended from the sky. 3 large holes appeared in the strange formation of ships. Hiss, Pei Qianying and the patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven were waiting to see a joke. Who knew this would happen? The ship formation that he had always been proud of couldn't even withstand one attack from Han Fei. Is this divine art heaven awakening? The patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven secretly exclaimed. If he was right, this couldn't be the heaven awakening divine art, could it? Song Kaiyuan and Mushui Sisi were even more shocked. Even Song Kaiyuan was shocked. Is this the human king technique? According to the legend, such a technique wasn't something that ordinary people could master. In the Age of Doom, there was only one human king who could master the heaven awakening divine art. But today, they saw it. At this moment, Song Kaiyuan suddenly knew why the 4 immortal palaces asked them to be Han Fei's thugs. It seemed that they just wanted to get close to Han Fei. Because Han Fei was very likely to have the inheritance of the human king. The 3 ships of the Azura pirates were broken at the same time. The crew members on the ships were also dumbfounded. They never thought that something like this would happen. The crimson ship formation couldn't even hold out for half a second. Wuxia Shaochan had already rushed onto the ship. One of the shadows was entangled and his divine soul was instantly shattered by a soul stab. Han Fei wasn't worried about Xia Shaochan and the others at all. In terms of strength, these people were definitely at the top of the half-king realm in the chaotic sea. The Azura pirates couldn't compare to them at all. As for Han Fei himself, he attacked even faster. Han Fei drew out his blade and the great Tao of gravity instantly surged. How could Han Fei let these people fight back when he was at the king realm? Puff, puff, puff. 5 half-king realm cultivators couldn't put up any resistance in front of Han Fei. Their divine souls were controlled and they died immediately. Han Fei stepped on the ground and the blade purgatory was formed again. The area within 1,000 miles turned into a tide of swords. Even so, Han Fei didn't stop. Compared to the other pirate groups, Han Fei didn't have a good impression of the Azura pirates. Pei Qianying was just looking for the thrill of slaughter. But Pei Qianying wasn't a good person. Was Han Fei a good person? When it came to fighting, Han Fei had never been afraid. When it came to slaughtering, could Pei Qianying compare to Xue Fan? Xue Fan had sacrificed the entire Blood Sea Divine Wood City. If he really became a king, Pei Qianying would have to kneel down and call him daddy. Han Fei's hand gripped the void. Every time he slashed out, someone would be cut in half. Their divine soul had no time to escape and was destroyed by Han Fei's finger. In a single exchange, 9 experts had died at Han Fei's hands. On the other ship, Xia Shaochan and the others had already killed more than half of the King Realm experts. Of course, those who had been killed were basically not very strong. Han Fei had already shouted, "Leave the ship and expand the battlefield." As for the Medicine King Heaven's side, their combat strength was a little worrying. Only a guy named Mu Chen and a woman had killed 2 half-king realm experts, while Han Fei's side had killed 6 people. At this moment, the strength of the battle was revealed. Although the experts of the Medicine King Heaven had learned many things, their strength was limited. In other words, they were actually very strong, but they lacked combat experience. Otherwise, they wouldn't have lost 6 people in the first round of attacks. However, Pei Qianying's expression was extremely ugly. The only thing he hadn't expected was that Han Fei would be able to break through his ship formation so easily. If he hadn't been able to break through the ship formation, the battle would have gone in the other direction. Seeing that Han Fei's Avengers were so strong, Pei Qianying's body emitted a strong blood aura, and a figure appeared in the void. It was a figure formed by black and red mutant blood. Upon closer look, it was another Pei Qianying, and he also had the strength of the Pioneer Sea realm. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. An avatar? Han Fei laughed. With a thought, the surrounding spiritual energy was instantly sucked dry, and an invincible battle intent condensed, turning into a giant. With a point of his finger, a peak venerable expert was killed on the spot. From afar, he watched as the bloody man slashed down with his scythe that traversed the heavens. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Tianqi. When a pillar of holy light descended, Han Fei grabbed a 1,000-meter-long giant blade of holy light from the pillar of light. Swish, white light and blood-red light met in the sky. In the perception of countless people, they saw that the blood-red scythe was cut in half by Han Fei's slash. This was the bane of the heavenly saints. Even if the bloody figure was in the Pioneer Sea realm, so what? The Tianqi Great Path was the least afraid of this. Han Fei stepped 1,000 miles in one step, stepped into the void, and grabbed a mass of holy light in his hand. He waved his hand, and billions of blade auras pierced through the void and swept at the bloody figure. The bloody figure's blood aura exploded, but the terrifying explosion didn't hurt Han Fei at all. Instead, some people were infected by the blood mist and stained with dirty blood. But Han Fei slapped the bloody figure away. Pei Qianying, right? Then, Han Fei's whole body was filled with holy light, and he slapped the figure's head to the side. You're crazy, aren't you? You think you're something, don't you? You want me to give you resources? Han Fei's peak speed was definitely not enough, especially after he had experienced the Tao of Wind. Under the suppression of his attributes, he punched and kicked the bloody figure. I made you ugly. I made you a pirate. I made you an insult to the profession of pirates. Bam, Pei Qianying's avatar was completely suppressed. The dirty blood was useless. And his real body was being held back by the Medicine King Patriarch. He wasn't afraid at first, but the Medicine King Patriarch seemed to be on drugs and wouldn't let him go. Seeing that his avatar would be slaughtered if this went on, Pei Qianying's expression changed. He yelled, "Back off." Chapter 1828. Pei Qianying was originally very confident. He thought that any random ship formation of his wouldn't be something that the Avengers could break. In the end, in an instant, their ship formation was completely destroyed. Then, Han Fei went on a killing spree, showing the strength of the Pioneer Sea state. In particular, Han Fei's great path made Pei Qianying's heart sink. This Tao was suppressing his own great Tao. The great Taos countered each other. How could they fight this battle? At this point, Pei Qianying was also frightened. At this time, he couldn't help but wonder why the bounty of the Avengers was so high. 2C quelling bizarre treasures. So, this guy actually had the Tianqi Great Path. That was the Tao of the human king. At this moment, Pei Qianying wanted to run. But how could Han Fei let him do that? Han Fei roared, "Didn't you talk to me like that just now? Why are you leaving now? If you don't want to die, leave the sun moon shells behind." However, as a famous pirate, he still had some confidence after all. Pei Qianying was determined to leave, so he quickly came to the blood shadow clone. Immediately, the blood shadow merged into his body, and Pei Qianying's strength increased greatly. The filthy blood in the air turned into clones holding scythes, intending to intercept and kill the other crew members of the Avengers. And Han Fei didn't panic at all. Even if I'm not a king, I'm not necessarily weaker than you. When Han Fei divided 3 projections of the half-king realm in a row, Pei Qianying was really speechless. Is this guy really only a half-king realm cultivator? Can a half-king create a half-king projection? Are you fucking kidding me? In the chaotic battle below, Han Fei's side killed a total of 23 people and grabbed 18 sea-swallowing seashells. At this time, Han Fei knew it was almost time. If they really fought like this, he would be exposed, and then he wouldn't be able to beat them. Without the forceful obstruction of the Avengers, the Azura pirates ran very fast. After the Azura pirates ran far away, the big ship of the Medicine King Heaven was also ready to teleport. At this time, Han Fei said, "Where's the last pill?" Instantly, the Patriarch of the Medicine King Heaven threw a pill to Han Fei with an ugly expression. In the next moment, he directed the ship to move through the void. Han Fei shrugged slightly. At this point, he didn't want to fight anymore. Most importantly, if he continued to fight, he would be exposed. Originally, he only wanted to completely destroy the Herb King Dome. But who would have thought that the Azura pirate group would come? It was a pity that he wasn't able to kill either of them. Then, under everyone's dumbfounded gaze, Han Fei said, "This place is too noisy. Let's get out of here quickly. Let's run 5 million kilometers first. As for where we go, it's up to you." After a while, there were exactly 35 sun-moon shells in front of him. Han Fei looked at them one by one and couldn't have felt better. He cursed, not even one sea-quelling bizarre treasure. So poor. At that time, Song Kaiyuan and the others did not feel good. Song Kaiyun thought to himself, "I've seen a few sun-moon shells. There are countless spirit stones and various elixirs inside. Why did Han Fei say that he was really poor?" Han Fei rummaged and finally threw out a few sun-moon shells. "Fine, I'll give you one. 5 million for your hard work. I'm tired today. Let's take a rest." Everyone, Song Kaiyuan and Mui Shui Sisi looked at each other and calculated in their minds. On this trip, Han Fei had looted at least 5 million ultra-quality spiritual stones worth of resources. The two of them were speechless. How could he think that Han Fei was poor? Of course, Han Fei actually didn't suffer a loss this time. After all, not only did he get 2 5th-grade tribulation pills, but he also found a 3rd-grade tribulation pill in a sun-moon shell. Relatively speaking, in the Herb King Dome, pills were more valuable than spiritual stones. He had robbed 2 kings, but he had only managed to get a few pills. That was because he was too weak, and he had not been able to hunt down a king. Otherwise, how could a king be worth so little? If he could also expand his sea, he would definitely be able to wipe out both the Medicine King Dome and the Azura pirates like he was today. Then he had to do it all at once. In the sea-quelling painting, Han Fei looked at the 5th-grade pill, and information appeared in his eyes. Name a 5th-grade tribulation pill. Introduction: an ultra-quality pill refined by an alchemist to stimulate potential. This pill contains great energy and the power of the Tao. After taking it, the body's potential will be stimulated, and the user's strength will soar according to the user's talent. Level SC expansion quality ultra quality contains chaotic energy greater than 88 strands. Remarks: there is a certain chance that taking this pill will damage the foundation and leave impurities in the body. Seeing this description, Han Fei's eyes lit up. This thing was good stuff. Not only was there a large amount of chaotic energy, but it could also enhance different strength for different people. As for the impurities, it didn't affect him at all. He had been cultivating the pure mystic body. If there was impurities, he could just expel them out. How could he not know his own physique? He checked the other tribulation pill, which was exactly the same. Han Fei couldn't help but curl his lips. It would be good if he could get a 3rd-grade tribulation pill that could block the heavenly tribulation. The remaining 3rd-grade tribulation pill in front of Han Fei had roughly the same effect as the one he had obtained before. In addition to these precious pills, Han Fei calculated that he now had as many as 7 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. This number had already exceeded the total resources of the Hexagon Starfish sect. Xia Shaochan said, Hey, you're smiling." Han Fei immediately came back to himself. "Who? Did I?" Xia Shaochan said grumpily, "It's just a few pills. Do you have to be so happy?" Han Fei immediately gave the 5th-grade tribulation pill in his hand to Xia Shaochan and said, "One pill can make you exert several times your strength. If you use the Heavenly Cicada transformation and this pill, you may be able to reach the combat power of the sea expansion realm in a short time. There are exactly 2 of them, one for each of us. This trip is worth it. Xia Shaochan said in surprise, is the effect of this pill really so strong? Han Fei said, aren't you well read? The Medicine King Heaven has such a name, which means that it is indeed unparalleled in the chaotic ocean in alchemy. In this regard, it's trustworthy. Xia Shaochan took the pill and couldn't help but think, once the mermaid pearl of the mermaid clan is condensed, its strength will be doubled. Unfortunately, my mermaid pearl is still a little short. I guess I may be able to condense it after reaching the half-king realm. Oh. Han Fei thought to himself, with Xia Xiaochan's current strength, if she continues to cultivate the pure mystic body, when the mermaid pearl is condensed, wouldn't her strength be comparable to my current strength? It seems that I still underestimated the mermaid clan. If the mermaid clan's combat power in the half-king realm was so strong, Xia Xiaochan's bloodline level might be a little bit stronger than his current strength. While Han Fei and the others were resting, the Martial Emperor's city exploded. The news that the Azura pirates were being suppressed by the Avengers at sea was released by the Medicine King Heaven. Although the Azura pirates and the Avengers were not good people in the eyes of the Medicine King Heaven. However, at least the Avengers didn't kill people. This time, the 8 people who died were all thanks to the Azura pirates. Therefore, how could they not do something that could damage the reputation of the Azura pirates at this moment? When this news exploded all over the Martial Emperor's city, many strong masters were also talking about it. In a blacksmith shop, someone said, why don't we try it? Recently, there are a lot of people coming to the Martial Emperor's city. The blacksmith shook his head. You have to be alive to snatch it. They are all fierce dragons crossing the river. Those who have no strength have joined forces to come here. Those who have some strength can't be snatched by just anyone. The proprietress of a restaurant, dressed in a short velvet skirt, stood at the window and said in a sweet voice, it seems that the competition between the top 10 pirate groups is about to begin. I'm really looking forward to this hunt. Beside the proprietress, someone was puzzled. In my opinion, those kings should just stuff people into the Origin Sea. Then, just bring them over together. The proprietress sneered. If it were you, would you be willing to expose your Origin Sea? The Origin Sea is the foundation of the cultivation of the Pioneer Sea realm. How can those guys be willing to do that? Besides, if it's not difficult to come over, wouldn't it make people look down on this Martial Emperor's city? In a certain arena, a man in white had a relaxed expression as he watched the life-and-death battle between high-level venerables. When he suddenly heard the news, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. That person said, that's really interesting. A random pirate group actually defeated the Azura pirate group and even robbed the Medicine King Sky's ship. Really interesting. You said that Han Fei has not yet reached the Pioneer Sea realm? Yes, without a doubt. That person nodded slightly. That's even more interesting. A half-king can match a Pioneer Sea realm, and Pioneer Sea realm cultivators are not allowed to take the initiative to attack those below the Pioneer Sea realm. Doesn't that mean that this person is invincible in the free war zone? Exactly. Ha, the Peace Pirate Group has always believed in peace. What do you think? Let's not compete in this game for now. There were all kinds of monsters in the Martial Emperor's city. There were still 9 days before the invincible inheritance. At this time, more and more people were waiting to watch the show. In the free war zone, there were also many people preparing to forcefully break through and enter the Martial Emperor's city. After all, it was not very easy to rob and kill a ship across the sea for 30 million miles. Some people watched quietly, while others prepared to hunt. After all, for veteran pirates, if they did not seek some excitement, there would not be such a grand occasion in the future. The Martial Emperor's city did not open the Martial Emperor's inheritance every day. Chapter 1829. Outside the Martial Emperor's city. In the free war zone spanning 30 million miles, battles were unfolding in every corner. Among the major pirate groups, in addition to Han Fei who plundered the Medicine King Heaven, the other major pirate groups also took action. They were far away from Han Fei, so Han Fei didn't encounter them. Han Fei picked up the navigator and searched for the force that was the least dangerous and most suitable for plundering. As a result, Han Fei, and the others, who were preparing to plunder, found that the other party was actually the Red Fire Pirates, which ranked 9th. Han Fei was speechless. He thought he would encounter other forces heading to the Martial Emperor city. However, the navigator pointed to the Red Fire Pirates. So, this Scarlet Fire Pirates is actually the most suitable for me to rob. However, they were also pirates. Originally, they came out to plunder. How many resources could they bring? Except for the resources of Shui Ran, the leader of the Red Fire Pirates, there was nothing to plunder in the entire Red Fire Pirates. When the Avengers suddenly appeared on the Red Fire Pirates route, the people of the Red Fire Pirates were all shocked. Who the hell is this? Who the hell is running into our cannon? However, the two sides looked at each other, and their faces were all dark. Song Kaiyuan said, "The fire god of the Red Fire Pirates. The one on the fire god is probably Shui Ran. It is said that he is known as the second fire of the chaotic ocean. He has an alien flame and is the god of fire." Han Fei's face was ugly. Why did we encounter such a thing? The Red Fire Pirates had 2 large ships. On the ship, there seemed to be 40 or 50 people, plus a Pioneer Sea Realm powerhouse. This force couldn't be underestimated. On the opposite side, Shui Ran also looked at Han Fei in surprise and said helplessly, "The Avenger Pirates? Are they stupid? Robbing our Scarlet Fire Pirates?" Behind Shui Ran, a half-king said, "Captain, this Avenger is not a friendly person. It is said that Han Fei fought Li Ji of the Medicine King Heaven and Pei Qianying of the Azura Pirates yesterday without losing. He has a total of 7 subordinates on his ship, all heavenly talents. The 3 ships of the Azura Pirates didn't hurt him at all." Humph. Shui Ran snorted coldly, "Do I need you to tell me about this?" After the two sides confirmed each other's identities, Shui Ran of the Red Fire Pirates asked Han Fei telepathically, "Han Fei?" Han Fei stood proudly at the bow. "Shui Ran?" Shui Ran asked, "The Avengers. What does that mean?" Han Fei smiled. "I've got the wrong person. Do you believe me?" Shui Ran, if that's the case, shall we part ways?" "Don't worry. Since we've already met, why don't we have a battle first?" Shui Ran's face turned cold. "Han Fei, are you provoking me?" Han Fei shrugged and said, "I'm just asking for a fight. Do pirates have to plunder resources?" With that said, Han Fei looked at Song Kaiyuan and the others. "Your trial time is up again. Kill them." Not to mention Song Kaiyuan and the others, even Shui Ran was speechless. Who the hell was this person? Falling out with him just like that? Could it be that this was another peaceful pirate group? The peaceful pirate group was determined to wipe out all pirate groups, so they didn't have a good relationship with anyone. However, the peaceful pirate group was extremely strong, and ordinary pirates would avoid them. Historically, whenever the top 10 pirate groups changed their rankings, one of them would usually be wiped out by the peaceful pirate group. It had been like this for many years. Therefore, many pirate groups were hesitant at the mention of the word peaceful. Shui Ran looked over coldly. At this moment, except for Han Fei, there were only 7 of them. How could they fight against 50 people on his side? To be honest, although Shui Ran knew that the crew of the Avengers were very strong, wasn't this too exaggerated? He wasn't afraid at all. Swish, swish. When Han Fei and Shui Ran broke through the void, the battle below also became white-hot. After more than 10 minutes, the Red Fire Pirates left behind the corpses of 5 venerables. Then, led by Shui Ran, they ran away. Shui Ran was shocked. Han Fei is so strong. Is he still a half-king? Even if he used some kind of secret method, Han Fei's combat power was too shocking. However, the key problem was that Han Fei was not a king and was not restricted by the rules of the Martial Emperor city. Fortunately, he ran away quickly. Otherwise, if he continued to fight like this, Shuiran felt that the Red Fire pirates, who were about to be ranked at the bottom, would probably suffer a great disaster. Shuiran escaped. Little did he know that everyone on the Avengers, including Han Fei, was not relaxed. Han Fei's battle was not for resources, but for fighting. With the pressure of the battle, he consolidated his strength. After all, in the 2 months outside the Grand Mystery Heaven, he had improved too much. And Song Kaiyuan and the others, although they had experienced a lot of battles, were not rich. Everyone enjoyed the battle to their heart's content. In fact, in addition to sharpening himself, another thing Han Fei wanted to do was to make a name for himself. After all, so far, the Avengers had fought with the Raiders, Fierce Gale, Azura, Red Fire, and many other pirate groups and had never lost. And now, near the Martial Emperor city, there were so many strong masters, and the news was so smooth, it was hard for the Avengers not to become famous. However, Han Fei felt that this was not enough. On that day, the Avengers robbed the ship of the Dreamweaver Sky. However, there were too many soul tactics in the Dreamweaver Sky, and Han Fei and the others didn't gain much advantage. Fortunately, they escaped unscathed. The next day, the Avengers attacked the seabed humans. As a result, they were intercepted by 2 kings. Fortunately, Han Fei reacted quickly and ran away. On the same day, Han Fei returned with the Gemini Divine Technique. Besides, he killed a half-king in front of the 2 kings of the seabed human race, which was full of provocation. Another day, Han Fei robbed the refining god Heaven. The next day, Han Fei robbed the Berserk Corpse Sky. For 7 days in a row, Han Fei and the others didn't gain much, but they provoked everywhere. After fighting this, they fought that one. It could be said that the Avengers were now really famous. In the Martial Emperor city, a gambling house opened a bet. Today's bet, get ready to start. The first bet, whether the Avengers will attack the Wuji Heaven or not. The second bet, the Misfortune Pirates take the initiative to attack and claim to hunt the Avengers. The success rate. The third bet. The gambling house opened bets according to different situations. There was no cheating involved in this kind of prediction. It was all based on guessing. Someone laughed and scolded, if the Avengers dare to attack the Wuji Heaven, they will be courting death. If the Grand Pure Palace and the Wuji Heaven Palace were so easy to rob, they wouldn't have a chance. But in this casino, someone shouted, "Fuck, I'm optimistic about the Avengers. Isn't it just going to attack the Wuji Heaven? I bet 1 million ultra-quality spiritual stones." Bet. Hiss, someone took a breath and said, "Brother, you are throwing resources into the water. How good would it be if you gave it to me?" In the limitless skies, who would dare to rob a random king other than the immortal pirates? The person who bet said disdainfully, "Who hasn't robbed the Avengers these days?" The casino was in an uproar. After placing his bet, the man returned to his seat. Here, there were 4 other people sitting. As soon as the burly man sat down, he sighed. "It's a pity that we can't bet too much. I estimate that we can only earn 500,000 yuan at most." Another person said, "Why don't we go to the auction house later? Let's sell all the things we robbed. Otherwise, we have to pay for the money we owe the captain." Immediately afterward, a scholarly man said, "These days, we have almost earned back 1 million ultra-quality spiritual stones." Even though he had to fight more and earn less, it was still much faster than normal cultivation. "Later, we will sell all the things we can." It was not easy to come to the Martial Emperor city. Even though there were many good things here, the Martial Emperor city was not easy to obtain. "If we don't have money to buy them, it will be embarrassing." A woman said, "Can I borrow them from the captain? The captain is worth at least 30 million. Everyone was speechless. "Do you think you can borrow them?" These 5 people all looked ordinary. They were Song Kaiyuan and the others in disguise. As for Han Fei, he had gone to hunt the Wuji Heavens, just as the casino had said. Even the smartest Song Kaiyuan didn't know how Han Fei could hunt the Wuji Heaven ship. The kings of the Wuji heaven were not ordinary kings. Their strength was by no means comparable to Shui Ran or Pei Qianying. At this moment, a woman walked over, holding a fish skin map in her hand. Everyone looked at it and immediately asked, "Lu Ran, how much did you sell it for?" Lu Ran's face was still in a slightly stiff state. After pondering for a long time, she said leisurely, "You can't imagine it." Everyone asked, "How much?" Lu Ran said, "The information that the captain asked us to sell is worth this much." Lu Ran stretched out 2 fingers. "Wow! 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones." Lu Ran shook her head. "It's 20 million. What?" In an instant, the few of them fell into silence. They got off the ship in advance and came to the Martial Emperor city because the ship that Han Fei was going to rob today was beyond their ability. However, they didn't come down to play. They came with a mission. That was, to completely reveal Han Fei's identity according to Han Fei's instructions. At the same time, they would also reveal a fictitious ancient secret. Song Kaiyuan was also shocked at this moment. So much money. It's not worth that much just to reveal the captain's identity. Do you mean that the intelligence center of the Martial Emperor city believes the ancient secret? Lu Ran nodded. Most likely. At least, I have now received 10 million ultra-quality spiritual stones for the information. They said that when the follow-up information is confirmed, I can go to get the remaining 10 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Son of a bitch, Li Kaitian couldn't help but curse. Captain, it's too easy to make money. Chapter 1830. In the free war zone. 4 ships from the Wuji heaven appeared one after another. This time, the one overseeing the Wuji heaven was none other than Bei Xianbing, who had led the group to the king perished. Maybe it was because they were overconfident, or for some other reason, but the Wuji heaven's fleet didn't move very frequently. On one of the ships, a young man was cultivating on the deck. His body was shining with golden light, and terrifying intent descended from time to time. This person was Li Xinghen, a top genius of the Wuji heaven who had awakened the path of invincibility. His strength was at the peak of the half-step monarch realm in the Wuji heaven. Last time, Li Xinghen had thought he was just going to steal a few keys. Why would he need to do something so simple? Who would have thought that an expert on the path of invincibility would appear in the king perished? Therefore, Li Xinghen didn't want to miss the martial emperor's inheritance this time. Why were the Wuji heaven's ships moving so slowly? It wasn't because they couldn't run fast, but because they wanted to wait and see if the top 10 pirate groups would come to rob them. This was the confidence of the immortal palaces. Among the immortal palaces, some monarchs brought their people directly, some sneaked in, and some quickly went to the martial emperor city after entering the free war zone. Only a few dared to travel slowly in the free war zone. The Wuji heaven was one of the bold immortal palaces. Xinghen. Bei Xianbing appeared behind Li Xinghen without him noticing. She said, "Xinghen, it doesn't matter if we can meet the kid on the path of invincibility this time. I heard that there's a bronze door in the martial emperor's inheritance. Find a way to get in no matter what." Li Xinghen said, "Uncle Master, what's so special about that bronze door?" Bei Xianbing said, "I don't know. I've seen that door once before, but I couldn't enter it. I've never heard of anyone doing so. The Black Impermanence kid entered the king perished a few months ago and came out safely, which means that it's at least safe. There must be a great opportunity in there." Li Xinghen nodded. "Yes, Uncle Master. The martial emperor's inheritance only reopened after 1,300 years. Naturally, I won't let go of this opportunity." Bei Xianbing said, "You're lucky. It's been 3,200 years since the last time, and you still managed to kill a demi-king. So, to be able to make this trip is already not bad." Li Xingchen, after that, Bei Xianbing ordered, "Stay here for 2 hours. If no pirate groups arrive in 2 hours, then there is no need to wait. Just go straight to Martial Emperor City." Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of kilometers ahead, a large ship was floating on the sea. A figure wielding a pair of sabers stood on the mast and looked over. Beneath his feet, a flag of skulls fluttered wantonly. Bei Xianbing sneered, "Is this guy's brain damaged?" Li Xingqian narrowed his eyes. "It's the Avenger. Who would have thought that such a pirate group would come to stop my limitless sky? Martial uncle, let me do it." Bei Xianbing sneered, "Do I need to do anything to deal with such a small fry?" Li Xingqian suddenly stood up. "You can watch the battle, martial uncle." When the two sides were 20,000 kilometers away, everyone on the 4 big ships of the limitless sky saw the Avenger. At this moment, with a thought, the Avenger was taken in to forge the universe. Swish, he held his kitchen knife horizontally. "This is a robbery. Pay up." To be honest, at this moment, on the big ships of the limitless sky, everyone looked at each other as if looking at a fool. Someone was speechless. Is this guy's brain okay? He single-handedly stopped the fleet of the limitless sky. Someone shook his head. Is this the so-called Avenger? He's obviously a fool. Even if there are no kings in the limitless sky, Li Xingqian is not someone he can deal with, right? Someone grinned. This kid is dead. He may not know what he is doing. When they were only 3,000 kilometers away, Li Xinghan raised his hand, and the ships of the limitless sky slowly stopped. Li Xinghan stepped in the air, wearing a gilded ancient robe, and there was a golden light on his forehead. His aura fluctuated, and the surroundings were full of sharp metal qi. Li Xinghan said, "Avenger, Han Fei." Han Fei curled his lips. "Who are you? I don't know you. Give me money." Li Xingqian's expression didn't change. "How dare you single-handedly stop the ship of the limitless sky? You are very bold. I heard that your combat power is very strong. In that case, let's have a try." Han Fei shrugged. "You talk too much. In order to wait for you, I missed a meal. How can I give up without a few million yuan of compensation?" Li Xingqian's body was shining with golden light, and his invincible fighting intent was revealed. A pair of strange gloves appeared on his hands, as if there were hidden weapons on each finger. When the two stood facing each other, after a full minute, the two almost attacked at the same time. Swish, the two knives in Han Fei's hands slashed out a dazzling knife light, breaking through the void and crossing thousands of kilometers, going straight at Li Xinghan. Li Xinghan's eyes shone with golden light, and he just moved slightly in front of the ship, letting the knife light approach him, but it suddenly exploded. The rolling waves shook the hull back dozens of kilometers. Terrifying huge waves rolled back in the sky. And after this blow, a layer of golden light barrier that protected the ship was completely shattered. The wind around Li Xinghan was no longer something that ordinary venerables could resist. After feeling Han Fei's blow, the corners of Li Xinghan's mouth curled up slightly. "Interesting. You almost reached the Pioneer Sea realm. Unfortunately, it's still not enough." And Han Fei was slightly surprised. Is this person also on the invincible realm? Although Han Fei hadn't used the power of the Great Path yet, this person was definitely not an ordinary person to be able to block his blows so easily. Han Fei immediately knew who this person was. He was the only person in the limitless sky who had embarked on the invincible realm, and could also be called the strongest powerhouse in the limitless sky. Suddenly, Li Xinghan raised his hand. At the moment when Li Xinghan raised his hand, Han Fei suddenly felt a trace of crisis. He appeared on the other side with a Big Dipper. However, at the moment when Han Fei appeared, a golden thread moved extremely fast and appeared in front of Han Fei almost in an instant. Han Fei didn't move, and the coiled turtle array suddenly appeared in front of him. Clink! Crack! Although the coiled turtle array only gave Han Fei a short time, it was enough for Han Fei to raise his hand and condense a knife. When this knife was launched, a swish resounded between heaven and earth. Han Fei just felt that there was a silk thread that broke through the void and appeared in front of him in an instant. Han Fei curled his lips. Infinite phantom silk. It looks quite ordinary. Song Kaiyuan said that this infinite phantom silk was obtained by the master of the Wuji Palace in the Imperial Palace and later given to Li Xinghen. Combined with Li Xinghen's invincible realm, this silk thread could burst out terrifying lethality. It could be said that no one in the entire limitless sky was more suitable for this treasure than Li Xinghen. Of course, this infinite phantom silk was naturally a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Just now, Han Fei's knife seemed to have swung the silk thread away, but in fact, it just slashed out along the silk thread and made a sound of friction with the silk thread. The next moment, Han Fei tilted his head. Li Xingchen was about to make a move, when his face suddenly changed slightly. He left the big ship and raised his hand to punch. Bam bam, there were 2 consecutive roars, and the sea was dented. Li Xingchen was surprised. Where did this attack come from? He didn't see Han Fei at all. Could this attack have appeared out of thin air? Huh? Even Bei Xianbing couldn't help but frown. Even she didn't know where the 2 attacks just now came from. One was a knife light, and the other was a soul-splitting knife. To put it bluntly, few people on the Wuji Palace's ships could block this attack. Fortunately, Li Xinghen took action. Otherwise, the others might not be Han Fei's match. Bei Xianbing said, "Finish it quickly. This kind of tentative attack can't dig out the opponent's strength." Li Xingchen nodded, and with a swish, he turned into an extremely fast ray of light. Fuse. Han Fei directly fused Little Black and Little White. The moment the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes appeared, he also activated his Dao. Bei Xianbing suddenly stood up. Yin-Yang Divine Eyes? At that moment, Han Fei raised his hand, and the blade of hope appeared in his hand. The 2 knives slashed again. This time, it was no longer a tentative attack, but an attack with the Dao. Wuji Storm. Li Xinghen appeared in mid-air, and around his body, tens of millions of threads between tangible and intangible rotated and intertwined. Bam, boom. In the deafening explosion, Li Xinghen's body turned into golden threads of light, scattering in all directions. However, how could this escape Han Fei's eyes? Han Fei clearly felt the power of the fusion of spiritual beasts just now. In an instant, this person escaped instead of completely blocking Han Fei's attack. At this moment, the 2 Yin-Yang transmigration knives both reached the Wuji Palace's ship. When the golden light intertwined, Li Xinghen revealed his body, and he said solemnly, "Did you use a secret method?" Li Xinghen felt that Han Fei's strength was several times stronger than before. This kind of leap was too big. This meant that Han Fei's combat power at this moment was far beyond that of a king who had just entered the Pioneer Sea state. Li Xinghen thought it was a secret method, so he retreated. He was going to get the inheritance, not to fight a life-and-death battle at this moment. At this moment, Bei Xianbing suddenly took action. He stretched out his hand and clenched, and the Yin-Yang transmigration knives in front of the ship shattered. Bei Xianbing said leisurely, "Provoking a king is not under the protection of the martial emperor city." "Boy, who gave you the courage to pick a fight with the Wuji Palace?" First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1831. Li Xinghen immediately gave up the battle and fled back as fast as he could when Han Fei burst out his abnormal power. Or rather, he retreated temporarily, but he didn't think he was defeated. He just felt that Han Fei was digging his own grave. Increasing his strength with a secret method at the beginning of the battle was bound to be a burden on his body. In the long run, this person's achievements and potential would be limited. Because their strength was not on the same level, Li Xinghen had no desire to fight, so he gave up and let Bei Xianbing do it. Han Fei provoked them first and took the initiative to rob the Wuji heaven. In this case, Bei Xianbing could have taken action. Just now, she just wanted Li Xinghen and Han Fei to have a fight. Now, seeing that Han Fei unleashed the power of the Sea Expansion Realm, she certainly planned to take action. On the Wuji Heaven's ship, those who could come here were all the top heavenly talents of the Wuji Heaven. Therefore, many people had already understood what was going on with the scene before them. Only a few people were shocked. Even the strongest person under the sea expansion realm in the Wuji heaven was no match for Han Fei. The Avengers were quite strong. Someone was shocked. If the king didn't take action, wouldn't Han Fei be invincible under the sea expansion realm? At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the front. In their opinion, Han Fei had no chance of winning against Bei Xian. Someone shook his head. This person will definitely die. He can't survive. Someone looked solemn. Is this person using the legendary Yin-Yang divine eyes? If so, then he... Someone gasped. Someone from the legendary Yin-Yang heaven has been born. Bei Xianbing stood proudly in the void and smiled. I'm very curious. Only the Yin-Yang heaven has the Yin-Yang divine eyes, right? After 80,000 years, you finally came out. Han Fei smiled and said, yes. It's time for me to come out and settle the score with you. Settle the score. As if she had heard something funny, Bei Xianbing showed a disdainful expression. Who? You? Boy, have you become a king? As she spoke, Bei Xianbing raised her hand. As she raised her hand, tens of thousands of golden light spots appeared in the void. Whoosh, whoosh, the speed of those light spots was even faster than the speed of Li Xinghan's infinite phantom silk. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Han Fei's body moved in the void, and in an instant, there were hundreds of shadows. If you could freeze the image in that instant, you would see that the golden dots were small insects. However, because they were too fast, there was no time to see their data. Huh? Bei Xianbing, who was attacking Han Fei, suddenly tilted her head and sensed something behind her. With a single thought, the frost claw appeared in his hand. With a flip of his hand, he waved it 4 times. Bang, 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 bang. Although Bei Xianbing had attacked 4 times casually, the power she had unleashed was beyond everyone's imagination. The surface of the sea collapsed into a huge whirlpool. Bei Xianbing squinted her eyes and said, interesting, but you are still not strong enough. Humph, Bei Xian snorted coldly and disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, he had already appeared in the middle of a field of obscure light spots. Han Fei was going to use the star teleportation technique, but he suddenly realized that he couldn't keep up with her speed. Han Fei found that, except for his eyes, neither his body nor his soul could keep up with Bei Xianbing's attack rhythm. The moment Bei Xianbing moved, Han Fei sensed it. Bei Xianbing pressed her hand, and there was a loud explosion. In the void, a gray mist appeared. In the mist, Han Fei was nowhere to be seen. Bei Xianbing's speed was extremely fast. The first thing he did was to avoid the fog. Even so, his hand that slapped Han Fei was still stained. Bei Xianbing frowned in disgust. Her nose and mouth were all disgusted. What the hell is this? Why is it so stinky? Of course, as a challenger, Bei Xianbing certainly couldn't show it openly. He waved his hand and dispersed the gray mist. Then he said casually, the heir of the Yin-Yang heaven has appeared. Interesting. He has appeared before the sea expansion realm. It seems that the barbarian land is not a good place after all. At this moment, Li Xinghan, who had just retreated, said, Senior uncle, who is that Han Fei? Bei Xianbing said casually, he has shown up so many times in the martial emperor city. He can't hide it anymore. When we reach the martial emperor city, we just need to buy some intelligence resources, and we will know who he is. Speaking of which, just as Han Fei was attacking the everlasting sky fleet alone, the intelligence center in martial emperor city suddenly released a bombshell. The reason was that some people who had been robbed by the Avenger came to investigate the Avenger's information about Han Fei. Originally, the information about Han Fei's identity could only be deduced from the information. It wasn't difficult for someone with a mind to speculate about it. However, the result of speculation was not as clear as a direct conclusion. But just now, the intelligence center of the martial emperor city directly put up a sign saying that the Avenger's identity had been revealed. This price was 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones per piece, or it could be exchanged with resources of the same price. 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, for the experts of the immortal palaces and the thugs who lived in the martial emperor city, was not a lot of money, just a little expensive. It could be said that those who were interested didn't care about this money. Almost at the moment this intelligence was put up, more than 30 pieces were sold. Among them, none of the top 10 pirate groups were missed. They bought this intelligence as soon as possible. Immediately afterward, those who had been robbed by Han Fei, even if they didn't know, immediately bought it. As for the super forces such as the Mermaid Clan, the 100 Demon Clan, and the Seabed Human Clan, after knowing that a force was rising, how could they miss it? Therefore, Han Fei sent someone to sell this intelligence for 20 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. In an instant, 15 million had been transferred to the transaction center. He was about to get back the cost. This speed of making money was really terrifying. At this moment, many people were studying the intelligence. In the intelligence, a lot of information about Han Fei had been connected. The intelligence began. Han Fei, the captain of the Avengers, was the current successor of the Yin-Yang Heaven who had disappeared for 80,000 years. He had the Yin-Yang divine eyes and the Gemini divine technique. His identity was confirmed. With just this sentence, the people who bought the intelligence knew that it was worth it this time. After the intelligence came out, only an hour later, another piece of news suddenly came out. The source of the news was the gambling house of the martial monarch city. Someone said, the captain of the Avengers hunted down 4 of the Limitless Heavens ships alone and defeated the strongest expert below the Limitless Heavens sea-splitting realm, Li Xinghan. Later, he fought head-on with Bei Xianbing, the king of the Wuji Heaven, and was defeated in one move. Now he has fled. As soon as this news came out, half of the martial emperor city was directly set off a turbulent storm. The Wuji Heaven was an existence that even the top 10 pirate groups were unwilling to touch. A small unknown pirate group dared to rob them. And they fucking ran away. Everyone felt that this person was really bold. After this news came out, within 100 minutes, the 36 Black Heavens, the top 10 pirate groups, and various forces all had a copy of the intelligence on the Avengers. And at this time, the intelligence on the Avengers had already been sold for 25 million supreme-grade spirit stones. The trading center had already recovered its capital and made a huge profit. Song Kaiyuan and the others, who were secretly watching all this, looked at each other. Is this the fucking efficiency of the martial emperor city? Song Kaiyuan said, Lu Ran, go collect the money and buy a copy of the intelligence on the Avengers. We will give it some advice. Lu Ran said in surprise, the intelligence is provided by us. Do we also need to go read it? Song Kaiyuan, of course, the information we give out may be interpreted in another way under someone else's organization. So, we naturally need to read it. Go quickly. After saying this, Song Kaiyuan looked at Li Kaitian and said, go rent a private courtyard. Be spacious, but low-key. An hour later. When Lu Ran and the others came to a courtyard built in the central part of the martial emperor city, near the downtown area, Song Kaiyuan said speechlessly, Li Kaitian, do you have a wrong understanding of the word low-key? Li Kaitian said, do you think it is easy to rent a house now? Most of the courtyards have been rented out. It's just that there are too many people coming this time. It costs 300,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones a month to rent this shabby place. It took me a lot of effort to rent it for 2 months with 500,000 top-grade spirit stones. Song Kaiyuan said, anyway, it's captain's money. Don't worry about it. At this time, Lu Ran said, stop talking nonsense. Look at this intelligence first. It's more complete than what I revealed. Everyone quickly looked at it. In addition to the first sentence directly revealing Han Fei's identity, there was a series of descriptions below. Han Fei, male. Bone age, within 1,000 years. Realm, half a king. Strength, suspected to have a strange secret technique that allows him to burst out the combat power of the sea expansion realm in a short time. In his peak state, his strength is at least 80,000 waves. Speed and physique are all added. The secret technique can be maintained for about 10 to 20 minutes. Depending on the intensity of the battle, the duration will also change. Characteristics: good at disguise, Gemini divine technique, knife skills, physique comparable to that of a king, suspected to have an indestructible golden body. Great Tao, suspected to have multiple Great Tao at the same time, including the Yin-Yang Great Tao, the Strength Great Tao, the Time Great Tao, the Space Great Tao. Identity, suspected to be the current successor of Yin-Yang Heaven, the current palace master of Yin-Yang Heaven. Story 1. Half a year after the riot in the Savage Abyss, he fought with the Marauders and officially established the Avenger. At that time, Han Fei fought with the Crazy Four Kings and was defeated. However, in front of the Crazy Four Kings, he broke through the formation of ships and killed more than a dozen venerables. Story 2. In the place where the king died, he pretended to be the black and white ghosts, alias Fan Datong. Abducted the princess of the mermaids, suspected to have a portable small world, suspected to have the sea-quelling painting. Story 3. However, at the end of the story, there was a message. According to reliable sources, Han Fei once said that the mermaids can contact the world outside the chaotic sea. This news is still being confirmed. When the information is complete, we will release it as soon as possible. At present, the incomplete supplementary information is worth 1 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1832. Han Fei might be able to disguise himself, but after the series of battles in the chaotic Azure Sea, it was impossible that he didn't recognize any of his tactics. Since Song Kaiyuan was able to deduce Han Fei's identity, the Martial Emperor's city would naturally be able to deduce more if they provided sufficient information. At this time, Han Fei's name immediately resounded in the circle of some powerhouses. After all, Han Fei's identity was eye-catching enough. Han Fei's secret techniques, divine skills, and indestructible golden body were all worth coveting. However, after Song Kaiyuan finished reading the report, his first reaction was, no. Some information has been deliberately concealed. Song Kaiyuan said, this time, although we tried our best not to display any special power, it's not hard to find out if someone wants to study it. However, there was no mention of our identities in this report. Mu Shui Sisi, I'm afraid no one noticed it by chance, right? We did disguise ourselves after all. Besides, anyone can be a pirate. Why can't our 4 palaces have someone who can be a pirate? Song Kaiyuan shook his head slightly. Coincidence? If even I could guess it, how could those experts not? Experts never believed in coincidences. Now that we've appeared and are so powerful, there's no reason for Martial Emperor City to ignore us. Moreover, the relationship between the captain and Shui Zhan could be traced back to Lei Hutian in the initial investigation. If you really want to investigate carefully, this layer of connection can actually be broken through. Mu Shui Sisi asked, Senior brother, what do you mean? Are you saying that the information regarding Martial Emperor City is lacking? Song Kaiyuan said, I even think that the Martial Emperor City is protecting the captain. This level of intelligence is a disgrace to the Martial Emperor City. Mu Shi said, that must be because our identities haven't been discovered yet, right? If we are completely exposed, won't our 4 great immortal palaces and Snow God Palace become the target of the chaotic vast sea? Song Kaiyuan's eyes lit up. That's right. Although in name, there were now 5 immortal palaces that were related to the captain. However, it was very likely that this relationship would be erased by the Martial Emperor City. I even suspect that the information about Captain's first appearance in Thunder Fire City has been quietly erased. Lu Ran's heart skipped a beat. Later, I'll make another trip to the Information Exchange Center. We'll know once we investigate. Song Kaiyuan, go quickly. After only an hour, Lu Ran came back with a surprised look on her face. As soon as he entered, he heard Lu Ran say, Brother Song is right. The details and rumors on the ship are completely untraceable. Even if you pay a lot of money, you won't be able to sell it. Song Kaiyuan narrowed his eyes and said, "That's right." However, why would Martial Emperor's city take the initiative to help Captain? Is it for the safety of the 5 great immortal palaces, or is it purely to help the captain? Mu Shui Sisi, that doesn't make sense. Wu Emperor's city was built later. When Yin Yang Heaven disappeared, there was no Martial Emperor's city yet. Song Kaiyuan said, that is. Martial Emperor's city does not wish to see the humans of the 36 profound heavens killing each other. Li Kaitian hurriedly stopped him and said, wait, why did the 36 profound heavens kill each other after the captain was exposed to be in contact with our palaces? It's just a yin-yang heaven, there's no need to cause such a big mess, right? Song Kaiyuan shook his head slightly. This is a matter of choosing sides. Hiss. Or, was the last message that the captain gave us actually true? Everybody looked at each other in bewilderment. In fact, when Han Fei asked Song Kaiyuan to sell his intelligence, he also gave Song Kaiyuan a piece of shocking intelligence. The intelligence read, in the Age of Doom, the gods fought on the other side of the sea. That battle swept across the world for 3 years. The heavens cried and the great Tao collapsed. Every time the great Tao collapsed, it usually symbolized the fall of a god. Ever since then, the myriad of races became lawless, and the myriad of Daos returned to nothingness. After the fall of the gods, there was once a holy spirit who carried the oracle of the sea suppressing divine spirit and drafted a divine decree, ordering the Sea Clan to slaughter the myriad of races and reopen the primal chaos. The Sea Clan will have a large number of new gods who inherit the great Tao, and they will become the only masters of this world. Along with the god's decree, a strange technique appeared. The technique is unknown, but it can be used to become a venerable emperor. This technique was acquired by Chen Huangdian. This person secretly connected to the outside world of the chaotic ocean and has been cultivating for many years. It's very likely that he's hiding his strength, and he's suspected of wiping out the chaotic ocean. At the end of the intelligence, the source of the information was indicated, which was a private conversation between Han Fei and Xia Shaochan, the princess of the mermaids. In the eyes of Song Kaiyuan and the others, Han Fei was intentionally framing Chen Huangdian. After all, you abducted their princess, so they wanted to kill you. Wasn't that a given? However, if it was really a framing, the intelligence wouldn't be very credible. Even if Han Fei made up an awesome background, it wouldn't be of any use, right? Song Kaiyuan, who was rarely shocked, said, what the captain said is true. It seems that all the rumors about the Age of Doom that the captain mentioned are true. That's easy to understand. The Martial Emperor's city is probably protecting the captain for now and releasing the information so that someone can test it. They're watching in secret. Unfortunately. Everyone asked, what's wrong? Song Kaiyuan said with an awful face, our intelligence was sold too cheaply. After the intelligence on the Avenger came out, they only spent 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones to learn more about the Avenger. However, when they saw the last supplementary information, all the races and pirate groups couldn't sit still anymore. The mermaids could collude with people outside the chaotic ocean. The news was released by the Martial Emperor's city, so it must be very credible. Immediately, the intelligence center of the Martial Emperor's city was in an uproar. People kept coming. Customers were received one after another. The usual big client had now become an ordinary client. Someone even shouted, give me a copy of the Avengers report. Give me one too. Me too. If Han Fei saw this scene, he might have shed tears. He only wanted to cause trouble. Even without the Martial Emperor's inheritance, he would have come to the Martial Emperor's city. His purpose in coming to the Martial Emperor's city was to cause trouble. To be more precise, to cause trouble for Chen Huangdian. If nothing went wrong, the guy would definitely be waiting for him at the entrance of the Savage Abyss. If he was lucky, he could escape. If he was unlucky, it was possible that the guy could find him. Han Fei knew that he hadn't passed the test yet. He would be too stupid to fight Chen Huangdian at this moment. After all, could a regular king project his projection to the yin-yang heaven? Obviously, he couldn't. Therefore, Chen Huangdian might be stronger than Han Fei thought. Since he couldn't beat him, and he couldn't fight him, he might as well let other people fight him. As long as that guy didn't have the energy to bother him. After the things in the martial emperor's city were over, he would pick up his clone in the snow god's temple, buy some poison in the thousand poison heaven, and return to the Yinyang heaven immediately. As long as he avoided Chen Huangdian and became a king, he wouldn't have to be scared of him when he appeared in the chaotic ocean again. However, it never occurred to Han Fei that the information he released would be sold so crazily. After only a few hours, more than 100 copies of the Avengers Intelligence and Supplementary Intelligence were sold. Just the Supplementary Intelligence was sold for more than 50 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Also, the information was still being sold. It should be easy for them to sell 100 million a day. At this moment, Song Kaiyuan's expression turned ugly, naturally because of this matter. He completely underestimated the power of Han Fei's intelligence. They only sold it for 20 million. If Han Fei learned about it, everybody looked at Song Kaiyuan sympathetically. Han Fei trusted him, so he asked him to do this. But now, he was obviously at a disadvantage. On the other side, the Avenger appeared at the port of the martial emperor's city openly. Many people who were receiving guests at the port fell silent when they saw the Avenger. All of a sudden, the entire vengeance disappeared. A man in a black robe and a woman in a red and white gauze dress walked over from the void. Hiss, it's the Avenger. There's no mistaking it. Who's the one next to her? Is there such a beautiful woman on the Avenger? Someone said in a low voice, what the fuck do you know? It said that we have some clues about the Avenger's identity. This woman is very likely to be Princess Mingzhu of the Mermaid Royal family. She has been abducted by Han Fei. Someone was shocked. Do they really dare to do this? They just showed up like this. Aren't they afraid of being targeted? Someone sneered. So what if they're targeted? This is the martial emperor's city. Who dares to behave atrociously here? Someone sighed. I want to join this Avenger. I don't know if I have this opportunity. Ha! Bro, you think too much. Wherever the Avenger went, it would make enemies. If you get on the Avenger, I'm afraid you won't be able to get off. Someone echoed, yes, half of the top 10 pirate groups have a grudge against him. You can go, but I won't go. However, the martial emperor's city was never short of bold people. Some people thought that since the Avenger could survive until now in this situation, it must be very strong, or Han Fei had other tricks up his sleeve. Immediately, someone said, Captain Han Fei, does the Avenger still accept people? I am an advanced venerable and very strong. Do I have a chance to join? Han Fei was pretending to be cool when someone suddenly said this. Han Fei glanced at him and said lightly, the Avenger only accepts people who are half-king level or above. We don't accept people who are not heavenly talents or half-king level or above. Hiss, all of a sudden, the people in the port were stunned. Everyone thought to themselves, you're a fucking half-king yourself. Can you manage so many half-kings? However, Han Fei simply ignored this person. He looked at the vast land in the sea, the boundless wilderness, and the towering black stone buildings in the distance. Sea demons could walk on the land. There were transformed mermaids staring at him, octopus weirdo twisting its tentacles and looking at him curiously, and lobsters crawling on the ground. Seeing this scene, Han Fei felt that he had come to a monster concentration camp. The third chapter. Please vote, end of this chapter. Chapter 1833. In the martial emperor's city, there were all kinds of people, humans, and demons. In the martial emperor's city, venerables were everywhere, and explorers only accounted for a small number. The reason why there were explorers was that a small number of them were heavenly talents cultivated by certain forces, and most of them were the descendants of residents of the martial emperor's city. Among them, there were humans, sea demons, and even mermaids. In fact, after a series of unknown training, these explorers became venerables and were mainly responsible for the operation of the entire martial emperor's city. At this time, Han Fei saw a human woman wearing a kind of uniform. On the arm of the uniform, there was a Wu mark. On her waist, there was a badge similar to the star badge of the Scattered Stars Island. Han Fei guessed that the badge was used to identify one's identity, because everyone here had one. The woman looked calm and ordinary, the kind that couldn't be found in a sea of people. However, her strength had reached the peak of the venerable realm. When Han Fei and Xia Shaochan landed, the woman had already stepped forward, slightly cupped her hands, and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Captain Han Fei, because you made a big deal in the Martial Emperor City, the city sent me to lead you into the city." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. A big deal? Han Fei didn't ask much. He had already guessed what kind of deal it was. So, Han Fei just nodded slightly and said, "Then lead the way." The woman said, "Gentlemen, please follow me. Let's walk into the city. During this period, I will explain some rules that you need to follow in the Martial Emperor City." Han Fei stepped on the sandy road, and when he walked, there was a creaking sound. Han Fei deliberately stepped on the road because he hadn't walked so firmly for a long time, especially in such a place that looked like a primitive island. In some places, there were even muddy roads with mud and puddles. The woman said, "Sir, flying is not recommended in the Martial Emperor City most of the time. You can walk with the Great Tao of Space. However, we don't absolutely prohibit flying. In special circumstances, if you need to hurry, you can also fly." Of course, this is all monitored by the masters of the Martial Emperor City. They walked toward the city in the distance while chatting on the roadside. The woman explained the rules of the Martial Monarch City in an extremely familiar manner. Firstly, Martial Emperor City forbade people from using their senses to scan the city. If it was just scanning someone with his perception once or twice, it wouldn't be a big deal, but after a few times, he could report it. Secondly, Martial Emperor City encouraged everyone to speak their minds and not use voice transmissions. In order to ensure that no one could eavesdrop on their conversation, everyone who entered the Martial Emperor City was given an identity card. If he needed privacy, he would activate his identity card in secret. If it wasn't something private, everyone could just say it out loud. Also, the Martial Emperor City rejected discrimination. Discrimination was a sin. All races were born equal, and there was no such thing as high or low. If anyone dared to create discrimination in the Martial Emperor City, they would be chased out mercilessly. The result was very likely to be dismembered in the sea. In Martial Emperor City, there was no such thing as a currency. If there was, then it would be the use of supreme-grade spirit stones as currency. Everything would be converted into supreme-grade spirit stones. Of course, things like chaos aura could also be used as currency. However, most people wouldn't use it. This was because this was a paradise for thugs. Venerables are everywhere was a major feature of Martial Emperor City. It was inevitable that there would be enmity between experts occasionally. Even so, it was forbidden to fight in private. Once discovered, they would be severely punished. If the circumstances were serious, they would be expelled from the Martial Emperor City at the very least, or killed on the spot. Thus, if there were enemies in Martial Emperor City, they would either have to leave Martial Emperor City and settle it on their own, or go to the arena to have a duel to determine who was stronger and who was stronger, to the point where they were both convinced. After a brief introduction of the basic situation of Martial Emperor City, the woman said, "Generally speaking, you need to pay 100 supreme-grade spirit stones for every day you stay in Martial Emperor City. However, there is a rule in Martial Emperor City that anyone who spends more than 1 million yuan in Martial Emperor City will be charged 10 times less. Those who spend more than 10 million yuan will be exempted from staying and can even settle down in Martial Emperor City. Of course, this 10 million yuan can only be exempted for 5 people. If you want more free customers, you have to continue spending." Chirp, on the way, Han Fei saw some birds and beasts of the Sky Clan flying by. He was quite pleased. So, the Sky Clan doesn't have to fly. On the roadside, grass and wildflowers were scattered randomly. Xia Shaochan said, "They're just ordinary flowers and plants. They don't have any special power. The woman said, they're just ordinary flowers and plants. But ordinary flowers and plants are also forbidden to be destroyed. Depending on the situation, you need to pay for the damage to the flowers and plants. If no one sees it, it's fine. Martial Emperor City pursues nature. If someone once stomped and destroyed a large area of flowers and plants, then he only had two choices, either to replant these flowers and plants, or to die. Han Fei. Xia Shaochan. The two of them were speechless. There were so many rules in Martial Emperor City. Han Fei felt that those who didn't know better would think that they had entered a completely controlled civilized society. Han Fei asked, "What's your name?" The woman said, "Sorry, I don't have a name. You can call me 3001, which means that I am the number 3001 attendant of Martial Emperor City." Xia Shaochan couldn't help but frown. How inconvenient is it to have no name? You are already a peak-level venerable, which is one of the top existences in the chaotic ocean. There are very few people who are stronger than you. The woman said, "If I were in the outside world, I would have other code names. But in Martial Emperor City, I am 3001. Obviously, this woman wouldn't disclose information other than her code name. So Xia Shaochan didn't ask further. Seeing that they were about to reach the magnificent city, Han Fei said, "Since you are here to welcome us, you're not just here to show us the way and tell us about Martial Emperor City, are you?" The woman said, "If you want, you can go to the intelligence center of Martial Emperor City and exchange some information with us. We cherish every piece of information and will give a satisfactory price for it." Han Fei said with a smile, "How much did I sell my last piece of information for?" The woman said, 20 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei's eyelids twitched when he heard that. Xia Shaochan almost broke down. She had been in the mermaid royal family for more than 20 years, and she had only earned 10 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. But it turned out that it was less expensive than Han Fei's last piece of information. Xia Shaochan couldn't help but be a little confused. Had she been locked up for so long that her understanding of the chaotic Azure Sea's ultra-quality spiritual stones couldn't keep up with the situation? Han Fei tried to suppress the shock in his heart and said with a smile, "Then how much did you sell my piece of information for?" The woman said, "Sorry, this is a private matter of our intelligence center. However, I can tell you the sales on the surface. As of the time I went to pick you up, on the surface, the information was sold for a total of 76 million ultra-quality spiritual stones." Fuck, Han Fei finally couldn't help but curse. The number had truly shocked him. He had never thought that it would be so easy to make money. Han Fei didn't expect that such a shrewd guy like Song Kaiyuan would sell his information at such a low price. Song Kaiyuan had said that the transaction on the surface was 76 million. There must be other large transactions behind it. Damn it, wouldn't it be sold for 1 or 200 million? Han Fei could understand. The so-called transaction on the surface was something that everyone could calculate and guess. Because everyone knew it, there was no need to hide it at all. However, he had already sold it, and the price was completely beyond his expectations. Han Fei estimated that even if he was here, he might have sold it for 10 million. Song Kaiyuan was probably not to be blamed for this. Han Fei thought for a moment. "Okay, let's go to the intelligence center." After a moment, the woman took Han Fei and Xia Shaochan to the city gate of the Martial Emperor City. At the city gate, there would be someone to register them. After the registration, they would be given a permanent identity token, which could be pinned to the waist, similar to the star emblem token, but it didn't have as many functions as the star emblem token. At the city gate, there were 2 advanced venerables guarding it. One was a shrimp soldier of the 100 Demons clan, and the other was a half-mermaid. Han Fei raised his head and looked at the city gate. The gate was more than 200 meters high and the city wall was more than 600 meters high. This scene was spectacular, but not enough to surprise Han Fei. Bada Han Fei raised his head and saw that on the bluestone of the city wall high above his head, drops of water occasionally fell on the bluestone slabs under his feet. Han Fei even saw raindrops falling on the shrimp soldier's head, but he didn't seem to notice it. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, is this the so-called nature? Han Fei and Xia Shaochan entered the city gate. After passing through an invisible barrier, they looked at the gate almost at the same time, only to see a turtle sleeping. The turtle's aura was undoubtedly that of a half-king realm. Xia Shaochan said, I knew that there must be a stronger guard at the city gate. The woman said, actually, it doesn't matter whether they guard it or not. As long as the barrier is there, if someone intentionally commits a crime and tries to escape, the success rate is still very low. Han Fei shrugged. Okay, let's continue. Tell me, what are the places worth visiting in the Martial Emperor City? Or rather, what large trading markets are there in the Martial Emperor City? The kind where large transactions can be conducted. Chapter 1834. Greetings, Your Highness. Xia Shaochan waved her hand at a mermaid who bowed to her for no reason. She was speechless. This was already the 8th one. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan entered the city openly and didn't hide their identities at all. Therefore, many people recognized them, although they didn't know any of them. Xia Shaochan couldn't help patting her head. Han Fei, aren't we too high profile? Han Fei nodded. We have to be high profile. It's best if Chen Huangdian can stand in front of me now. Believe it or not, I can spit on him in front of him. 3001 suddenly interjected, by the way, spitting is forbidden in the Martial Emperor City. Xia Shaochan, Han Fei, the intelligence center of the Martial Emperor City. This place was like the logistics division of the Scattered Stars Island, and the buildings here were very large. Inside, there were nearly 100 service desks. Now, it seemed to be quite busy, and there were people at every service desk. Some service desks had no space to line up, and they even had to open small private rooms. Han Fei looked around. The layout of this place was not as gorgeous as the logistics division. Everywhere, there were black stones. As soon as he came in, Han Fei heard someone say, "Give me the latest intelligence on the Avengers." As soon as this person's voice fell, suddenly, the hall fell silent. Many people looked back. Wow! Han Fei, the captain of the Avengers? A mermaid was here. After seeing Xia Shaochan, he immediately saluted. Greetings, Your Highness. Xia Shaochan nodded indifferently. No need to be so polite. Go ahead. Yes, Your Highness. Han Fei looked at Xia Shaochan. You are more popular than me. Xia Shaochan rolled her eyes. Why don't you turn into a mermaid prince and have a look? I'm sure someone will salute you too. In the hall, only some people were stunned for a moment, and then the noise was restored. As long as you entered the Martial Emperor City, no matter how awesome you were outside, no one would be afraid. Anyway, they couldn't fight here. 3001 said, please. The Intelligence Center has arranged a special reception room for you too. The owner of our Intelligence Center will receive you in person. Han Fei's heart did a flip. A person who was in charge of such a large intelligence center must have a powerful background. Since this person wanted to take the time to receive him, it was obvious that the report had attracted their attention. Or rather, it was the latter piece of information that caught their attention. As 3001 entered the inner room, many people in the hall whispered, I'll buy it later. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe there will be new information. These people were all shrewd. Han Fei had come to the intelligence center in person. How could he not have some intelligence? After a while, Han Fei was taken to a place similar to a study in the intelligence center. In this place, bamboo shelves and fish skin scrolls were placed everywhere. The room wasn't small, and there were probably 1,000,000 fish skin scrolls. When they came in, they saw a woman in a bright red robe reading a fish skin scroll. The girl in room 3001 quietly left after seeing them in. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan's eyes were directly attracted by this woman. The woman's expression was extremely cold. Her cold temperament was a bit like Luo Xiaobai's. But even though she was cold, she couldn't get rid of the charm of a beautiful woman. When she saw Han Fei and Xia Shaochan come in, the woman didn't continue to read, but put down and closed the fish skin scroll, and said to Han Fei and Xia Shaochan solemnly, "Sit down." Han Fei and Xia Shaochan looked at each other and didn't stand on ceremony. What really surprised them was that they couldn't see through this woman's strength. Under normal circumstances, this woman would undoubtedly be a king tier. Han Fei didn't expect that the owner of an intelligence center in the Martial Emperor City had reached the Pioneer Sea State. How many Pioneer Sea State experts were there in the Martial Emperor City? Seeing the two of them sit down, the woman in red said, "My identity is not a secret. I am Yan Meng, the owner of the intelligence center in the Martial Emperor City. Those who can be invited here by me are usually people who have great intelligence and are usually here for large intelligence transactions." Han Fei said, "Haven't you already sold the intelligence?" Yan Meng pushed the two fish skin scrolls on the table to Han Fei and Xia Shaochan and said, "Take a look first." Han Fei and Xia Shaochan opened the first fish skin scroll in confusion. This fish skin scroll contained the basic information of the Avenger, which was also the basic information that exposed Han Fei's identity. Although the second scroll also recorded the basic information of the Avenger, this one was much more comprehensive. It actually recorded Han Fei's transactions in the treasure pavilion in the Thunder Fire Heaven. The auction, the first plunder, changing his name to Snow Battle, snatching the Wind Pearl, and so on. When Han Fei sold the intelligence, he didn't expect that the intelligence ability of the Martial Emperor City would be so terrifying. Some of the things that shouldn't have been discovered were recorded here. Yan Meng said, "You've seen the intelligence ability of the Martial Emperor City. However, I didn't sell this piece of intelligence to anyone. Otherwise, the Snow God's Temple and the Glass Palace would definitely be hostile to the other 36 profound heavens. Although they wouldn't be destroyed in the short term, it would definitely cause internal strife in the human race." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Why did the Martial Emperor City suppress the contents of this intelligence? Yan Meng looked at Xia Shaochan and said seriously, "Does Chen Huangdian really have an emperor technique?" Xia Shaochan wasn't stupid. As a member of the Mermaid Royal family, she certainly knew how powerful the Mermaid Royal family was. She knew that Han Fei's purpose was to push Chen Huangdian to the forefront so that he would be doubted in the mermaids and even in the entire chaotic ocean. Although Chen Huangdian had protected her, he had also detained her for decades. Besides, Han Fei wouldn't be able to do anything to Chen Huangdian. It would only put him in trouble. Xia Shaochan felt that it was feasible in any case. Xia Shaochan said without blinking, "Of course, not just that. I also suspect that he's hiding his strength." Yan Meng asked again, "Do you have any proof?" Xia Shaochan shook her head. "No." Yan Meng asked, "Then how can you provide this intelligence?" Xia Shaochan said, "I have my own way. Since the Martial Emperor City is so well informed, you must know why my mother has been sleeping for so long." Yan Meng said, "That's a mystery." Xia Shaochan said, "That's the mystery. I won't reveal too much. But my mother's hibernation is related to the outside of the chaotic ocean." Yan Meng pointed at the wooden table and asked casually, "Are you selling this intelligence?" Xia Shaochan shook her head quickly. "No." Yan Meng slightly nodded and looked at Han Fei. The Martial Emperor City has heard of the Oracle of the Sea suppressing God in this intelligence. However, it's just a rumor in the Age of Doom. However, it doesn't mention an amazing technique to become an emperor. How do you know it? Han Fei said with a smile, "How much is the information we just provided worth?" Yan Meng's face was emotionless. 5 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei asked, "Then what about the question you just asked?" Yan Meng said, 50 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself, damn it. Rich people are always so generous. 50 million as if it's only 5,000. However, this amazing technique was made up by Han Fei in the first place. Han Fei could fool most people, but he couldn't really fool the Martial Emperor City. Otherwise, once he was exposed, he would be lying to the martial emperor's city on purpose. So, Han Fei slightly sighed. It's a pity that my information comes from the River of Time. The specific time is about 120,000 years ago. You want me to prove it, but I can't. I can't judge whether this information is true or not. It seems that I can't get the 50 million. Yan Meng's eyes slightly lit up. The River of Time. We can also buy information about the River of Time at a high price. Han Fei shook his head. I won't sell information about the River of Time. Unless I become a king one day, my strength will be comparable to that of most kings in the chaotic ocean sea. Yan Meng nodded slightly. That was completely understandable. Since Han Fei's identity was exposed, he had already become a target of public criticism. She said, just now, your words about the River of Time and 120,000 years ago are worth 5 million. If there's nothing else, this transaction is over. Han Fei said, wait, I happen to have information to buy. Yan Meng nodded. Oh. Tell me about it. Han Fei made 10 million ultra-quality spiritual stones just by saying a few words here. However, she didn't know how much it would cost to buy this information. Han Fei said, I want to know why the kings of the chaotic ocean sea can't enter the yin-yang heaven. Yan Meng was slightly stunned. You don't know? Han Fei shook his head. I don't. Yan Meng's expression changed only for a moment, so she said, 5 million. The corners of Han Fei's mouth trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but ask, does our intelligence center charge in the millions? Yan Meng nodded. The price of intelligence varies. Han Fei gritted his teeth. Yes. Yan Meng said, because of the yin-yang Great Millstone. A yin-yang Great Millstone was formed in the depths of the savage abyss. This millstone can't be entered without the great Tao of yin and yang. Otherwise, even an emperor himself would be crushed by the power of the wildlands. If it were 80,000 years ago, it might be possible to break in by force. However, as time goes by, the yin-yang Great Millstone has become stronger and stronger, and it has long been impossible to enter. Yin-yang Great Millstone. Han Fei couldn't help but think of the millstone-shaped place he saw before. So, that thing was the real reason why others couldn't enter? Han Fei was puzzled. Then why can someone enter the yin-yang heaven by projection? Yan Meng said, 2 million. Han Fei thought to himself, does this also cost money? Han Fei didn't feel good at all. However, thinking that he had just made 10 million, he didn't mind spending it. So Han Fei nodded. Yes. Yan Meng said, the Tao of space can change the form of space. The Tao of time can travel through the gaps of time. In fact, there were even ancient sacrificial techniques that disregarded the Taoist rhymes of space. However, the most common method was to use projections, and then continue to project projections to graft and cross space. However, if they do this, their strength will definitely be greatly reduced. Even if they can bypass the yin-yang Great Millstone, they can only go there with a projection. They are very weak. Chapter 1835. At this moment, Han Fei heaved a long sigh of relief. Even if it was just to vent his anger, Han Fei felt that the 7 million ultra-quality spiritual stones were well spent. At this moment, he realized that nobody, including Chen Huangdian, could go to the savage abyss. No wonder Chen Huangdian could go there. It turned out to be a projection of a projection, which temporarily avoided the yin-yang grindstone by means of serial projections. Therefore, when Chen Huangdian went there, he was only an explorer. At this moment, Han Fei was naturally reassured. Other people couldn't go there, but he could go there. Unlike other people, who couldn't pass the yin-yang grindstone, he could perform the Gemini divine technique. His mist body was not afraid of the yin-yang grindstone, so he could return to the yin-yang heaven safely. Han Fei continued, the savage abyss should be connected to more than one place. I want to know what other secrets there are in the savage abyss. Yan Meng said, the total price of this information is 30 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei, Xia Shaochan secretly stuck out her tongue. Now, she felt that the ultra-quality spiritual stones in the big starfish's door couldn't even buy 1/3 of the information. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He asked this question out of curiosity. In the end, he didn't know if he hadn't asked, but the moment he did, he was shocked. This was so much faster than robbing him. Han Fei immediately shook his head. Forget it. It's too expensive. Han Fei was going to ask if there was any information about the demon purification pot. However, on second thought, why should I ask about this kind of thing? He could just point at it with the nautical panorama. Moreover, the demon purification gourd had to be kept a secret, and no one else could know about it. As far as Han Fei was concerned, he came to the martial emperor's city mainly to cause trouble. Now that the first thing was done, there was no need to panic. He could just wait and watch the show. Han Fei said, I have nothing else to buy. Come in. Yan Meng called, and the woman number 3001 came in. She said, take them back and pay 3 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Yes. When Han Fei and the others left the room, a man quietly appeared in the room. Yan Meng said, what do you think about the prophecy? He said. The man said, it seems that they intentionally released the news to torment Chen Huangdian. However, as far as we know, the information matches up perfectly. He talked about the River of Time, which makes it more believable. The martial emperor's city had always suspected Chen Huangdian's strength. Now that the mermaid princess had personally confirmed it, the credibility was not low either. It didn't matter if the venerable emperor art was real or fake, and it didn't matter if the merfolk race could communicate with people outside of the chaotic Azure Sea, even if it was fake, this information was still very valuable. At the very least, this information has given us a way to prepare the chaotic Azure Sea's people. Yan Meng nodded slightly. I think so too. Pass down the order, the Avenger will add another 500,000 top-grade spirit stones to the price. Okay. After leaving the martial emperor's city's intelligence center, 3001 took out a map of the city and handed it to the two of them. Please help yourselves. This was the topographic map of martial emperor's city. There were some important places in the city marked on it. If the two of them had the time, they could go and take a look. I'll take my leave. Han Fei took the map jade slip, scanned it with his perception, and memorized the map of the city. Casually, Han Fei handed the map to Xia Shaochan. Xia Shaochan said, it seems that the martial emperor's city doesn't want the human race to have internal strife. Han Fei said, even if the news is leaked and others learn of my relationship with the snow god's palace and the glass sky, it's useless. There are only 30 years left before the imperial palace opens. For them, the time is too short. It's almost in front of them. The masters of the immortal palaces are already old. If they want to fight, they won't do it before the imperial palace opens. That's why I released the news, not entirely because the martial emperor's city doesn't want to cause internal strife in the human race. Xia Shaochan nodded slightly and said in surprise, this martial emperor's city has a lot of facilities. It's somewhat similar to the Scattered Stars Island. Han Fei said, there are only a few things that humans can do on land. No matter where they go, they're always the same. It's nothing to be surprised about. From the map, Han Fei learned that the martial emperor's city had special auction houses, gambling houses, treasure pavilions, bookstores, super resource stores, refining workshops, cultivation towers, multiple inns, martial arts arenas, mission centers, large itinerant cultivator trading markets, and even medical centers. It could be said that it had all the functions it should have. Among them, what was the most worthwhile place to go? Han Fei found that the super resource stores, mission centers, and the large itinerant cultivator trading markets were all bustling places. They must be the most worthwhile places to go. Xia Shaochan said, which one should we go to first? How about the super resource store? According to the introduction, this is the exclusive store of the martial emperor's city. All kinds of good things are placed on the shelves for sale, with clearly marked prices. If you have money, you can buy it. If you don't have money, you can't buy it. Han Fei grinned and said, let's go there. Now that we are rich people, let's go and have a look. Quack, the two of them stood at the door of the intelligence center and saw a red armored centipede 5 or 6 meters long crawling over. When the centipede saw Han Fei and Xia Shaochan, it couldn't help but be stunned. Han Fei, the leader of the Avengers? My apologies, my apologies. The centipede propped up the front half of its body and spoke with its big, hideous mouth. Its strength had reached the half-king realm. Han Fei was stunned for a moment. One day, he would actually chat with a centipede? This was beyond his expectation. Han Fei nodded and said, do we know each other? The centipede shook its head. No, no. However, the Avenger did a good job fighting the Azura pirates. I really admire you. Han Fei didn't know how to communicate with this kind of venerable insect. He nodded and didn't say anything more. He just said that he had something to do and left. At any rate, he was now a big shot of a region, an existence that could defeat the top 10 pirate groups. With his strength, even in the martial emperor city, he was also an extremely powerful and glorious figure. How could others talk to him casually? The Super Resource Store. When Han Fei and Xia Shaochan found this place, they found that this market was really large, covering an area of about 500 square kilometers. Yes, Han Fei was right. It was such a big place, and inside it, there were a lot of goods placed there in satisfaction. When Han Fei and Xia Shaochan arrived, some people had already recognized them. However, no one came to talk to them. After all, there were many strong masters in the martial emperor city. After all, Han Fei was just a half-king realm cultivator. Although many people marveled at Han Fei's identity and stubbornness, they didn't want to make friends with him. They were not very willing to. After entering the supermarket, they saw a half-king realm powerhouse gave Han Fei and Xia Shaochan each a jade slip, saying, guests, this is the topographic map of our store and the shelves where the resources are placed. If you too like something, just take off the jade slip label under the corresponding resource. When the settlement is over, the corresponding staff will send the high-quality goods you choose to you. Xia Shaochan took a breath and said, this is even larger than the trading market of the mermaid royal family. If I didn't know, I would think this was the treasure house of the martial emperor city. Han Fei reached out and closed Xia Shaochan's mouth. Don't be envious. The treasure house of the mermaid royal family can't be worse than this. Okay, let's go and have a look first. I seem to be in the bone area now. As soon as the two entered, they looked up. The skeleton of the ink dragon fish was at the peak of the venerable realm. It was extremely tough and was said to be a rare stone among bones. Its price was 100,000 top-grade spirit stones. Dark ice dragon teeth, half-king, extremely sharp and extremely hard material, priced at 180,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Heartless seahorse bone, peak-level venerable, can be used as medicine, extremely difficult to find, priced at 160,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. There was no end to this row of shelves. Han Fei looked all the way and saw the highest price, which even reached more than 1.2 million, was a half-king realm big bone. Suddenly, Xia Shaochan shouted, Han Fei, come over and take a look. Han Fei leaned over and took a look, and immediately took a breath. Ancient black crab shell armor, sea expansion realm, extremely terrifying defensive power, which could block the bombardment of a sea expansion realm cultivator. It was an ultra-quality material for refining sea expansion realm treasures. This shell was the shell of the ancient black crab, extremely difficult to find, priced at 3.98 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. When Han Fei saw this shell armor, his first thought was to use it to refine weapons. In this chaotic sea, in the extreme battle of strength, ultra-quality divine weapons were no longer enough. Sea-quelling bizarre treasures, because they were extremely difficult to refine, were also priceless. Now that Han Fei saw a top-level material like the ancient black crab here, how could he not be tempted? Han Fei just didn't have so much time to refine weapons. Otherwise, if Han Fei really studied refining, he might be able to refine this sea-quelling bizarre treasure. At this time, the little vines of the demon purification pot returned one after another, which could also be used to refine sea-quelling bizarre treasures, but it consumed a lot of energy. Han Fei was relatively poor before, or rather, he didn't have enough resources, so he didn't refine sea-quelling bizarre treasures. But now, in the martial emperor's city, he had all kinds of materials, so what couldn't he do? Now, Han Fei had the white armor emperor's shell armor, which was his best material. But it was probably only comparable to this ancient black crab. Immediately, Han Fei pulled this jade slip off. Xia Shaochan was taken aback. 4 million. Do you really think I'll buy it? Han Fei smiled and said, don't worry, we have money. This is a material for refining sea-quelling bizarre treasures. It's worth it to make one. Xia Shaochan was stunned. You can refine sea-quelling bizarre treasures now? Han Fei nodded. I can try. Mainly, I have too many messy resources. If I can exchange them for such treasures, why wouldn't I? Then, without hesitation, Han Fei held the jade slip of the ancient black crab in his hand and said, let's keep looking. I'm a rich man now, and I like this kind of high-level stuff. Han Fei didn't know that when he was holding the jade slip of the ancient black crab, a king was looking at him. The king murmured, interesting. Chapter 1836. In the super resource store, there were mainly spiritual fruits, spiritual liquids, demonic plant materials, demonic beast materials, weapons, ores, and various body materials of marine creatures. Han Fei had always been very interested in spiritual fruits. However, when Han Fei looked at the spiritual fruit shelf, he found that all kinds of spiritual fruits were packaged and sold together. The lowest price was 100. Furthermore, these were not ordinary spirit fruits. They were all extremely difficult to find. For example, the dragon blood fruit that Han Fei auctioned in the Thunder Fire Heaven. Oh my god, there were more than 20 of them here. Of course, the price was not cheap. The price of 20 dragon blood fruits reached a sky-high price of 2 million. Han Fei narrowed his eyes when he saw this. At this price, he couldn't afford it. Considering that the dragon blood fruit had a great body refining effect, even if he cultivated the pure mystic body, a dragon blood fruit could support him for 3 days of cultivation. Han Fei gritted his teeth and took the jade slip of the dragon blood fruit. After all, Han Fei only had one left. With these 20 pills as a foundation, he could have at least 2 months of explosive training. After a while, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan strolled to the shelf of demon essence pills, only to see that Xia Shaochan couldn't walk anymore. Han Fei asked, is this demon essence of the mermaid clan beneficial to your cultivation? Xia Shaochan nodded. There is some demon essence of the mermaids here, but they are actually called mermaid pearls. For example, a half-martial king realm mermaid pearl can increase my strength by about 5%. Wow, Han Fei said in surprise, doesn't that mean that swallowing 10 of them can increase your strength by another 50%? Xia Shaochan looked at Han Fei as if looking at a fool. How can it be so easy? Of course, the more I absorb, the less effective it will be. However, there was only one demonic essence of the half-monarch realm here. As for the mermaid pearl of the peak-level venerable realm, its effect on me is not very obvious. Han Fei immediately greeted the waiter. At the top of the store, an intermediate venerable realm waiter immediately landed. What can I do for you? Han Fei pointed at the demonic essence of the half-king realm and said, how many do you have in total? The waiter was stunned for a moment. There was no telling if he had recognized them. He quickly said, please wait a moment. I'll check the inventory. After about 2 minutes, the man reappeared in front of them and introduced, Sir, there are 57 known mermaid pearls of the half-king mermaid clan. How many do you need? Han Fei and Xia Shaochan were dumbfounded. They looked at each other in bewilderment. Fuck, there are as many as 57 demon essence pill beads priced at 12.8 million each. This meant that there were 57 merfolk half-kings that had fallen. Xia Shaochan was obviously stunned too. She looked at Han Fei and said, "We don't need that much. But we can't afford it, can we?" Han Fei's body began to heat up. He immediately said, "Why can't I afford it? Do we look like people who lack money? I have 31 million on me. How many do you want?" Xia Shaochan swallowed, calculated for a while, and quickly came to a conclusion. 10. 10 mermaid pearls of the half-king mermaid clan can definitely improve my strength by more than 30%. Han Fei knew how significant this 30% was, so he immediately said, "Buy it." He looked at the waiter and said, "Give me 10. The waiter's heart did a flip. What a generous offer. It usually took a long time for someone to buy one of these resources. This person immediately bought it. He was rich and overbearing. However, the demonic essence of the half-king mermaid clan alone cost 12.8 million. All the ultra-quality spiritual stones Xia Shaochan had added up were not enough. Of course, if Xia Shaochan was willing to sell other things, it would definitely be enough. But how could Han Fei let her spend this money? The waiter reacted very quickly and said, "Please wait a moment." Then, in less than 2 minutes, he came back again, holding 10 jade slips in his hand. At this moment, Han Fei was already holding a handful of jade slips in his hand. There were only 2 or 3 people shopping near Han Fei and Xia Shaochan. When they saw the actions of these 2 people, they were dumbfounded. Someone secretly exclaimed, "They're really fucking rich." A guy in the costume of the Gale pirate crew swallowed frantically. "Fuck, how many times do I have to rob them before I can get them back?" However, Han Fei looked at Xia Shaochan and said, "Let's keep shopping." Xia Shaochan couldn't help but feel a little guilty and secretly said to Han Fei, "We're still shopping? We've almost spent 20 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. If we keep shopping, I'm afraid I won't be able to stop." Han Fei smiled. "Don't panic. I know what I'm doing. In total, we have more than 40 million supreme-grade spirit stones. Song Kaiyuan still has 20 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. That's not even close." Xia Shaochan said, "Fortunately, we put the big starfish into the painting. Otherwise, it won't be able to walk anymore." Han Fei smiled and said, "It hasn't digested the power in its body yet. It doesn't have to worry about these things now." Han Fei and Xia Shaochan continued to sweep the shelves while muttering. They had only walked less than 10 kilometers. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes fell on a row of shelves. On the shelf, it was written Azure Dragon Big Tendon, Sea Expansion State, refining material for sea quelling bizarre treasures, extremely rare. This Azure Dragon Big Tendon came from an Azure Dragon in the Sea Expansion State summoned by the dragon subduing heaven 30,000 years ago. The price is 2.08 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Gulp. Han Fei couldn't move at all. A Sea Expansion State Big Tendon? This is a perfect match for my void lines. Han Fei immediately waved to the waiter who was patrolling in the air just now. "Come here." When the waiter saw that Han Fei was shopping again, and this time he saw the Azure Dragon Big Tendon, he was shocked. Damn, this is a big customer. Even though the Martial Emperor City had trained these waiters to be indifferent, at this moment, he couldn't help but feel his heart pounding. After all, they sold things for commission. "What can I do for you?" Han Fei pointed at the Azure Dragon Big Tendon and said, "Let me ask you, how many Sea Expansion State Big Tendons do you have?" The waiter immediately said, "Please wait a moment. I'll be right back." 3 seconds later, the man came back again. However, this time he came back with someone else. The newcomer was a half-king realm expert. The half-king realm expert said with a smile, "Hi, I'm number 203. You can call me 203. Even in the Martial Emperor City, there are only 3 Sea Expansion State Big Tendons." Han Fei frowned and said, "Not enough." 203 seemed to understand and immediately said with a smile, "Do you like half-king realm Big Tendons?" Han Fei shook his head. Not good enough. Xia Shaochan couldn't help but look at Han Fei. Wait. Are you going to make a fishing rod? Han Fei smiled extravagantly. It's very useful. I'll tell you later, 203 said, Your Excellency Han Fei, in fact, in addition to the Azure Dragon Big Tendon, if you can accept the big tendons of other creatures, such as the big tendon of the sea-swallowing demon whale, the big tendon of the mountain sea divine turtle. If these are acceptable, we can take out a total of 21 tendons in our shop. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. The quality is similar to this Azure Dragon Big Tendon, 203 replied, not much different. They are all sea expansion state creatures. However, they are not necessarily peeled off after the sea expansion state creatures died. Some of them were sold by sea expansion state creatures themselves. Some were obtained after they shed their flesh. But most of them are similar in nature. In terms of price, they are all within the range of 200,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Give me 11, 203 smiled delightedly. With a flip of his hand, a circle of jade slips with a rope buckle appeared in his hand. He said, choose 11 of the best quality for you too. There are prices on them. You can take a look. When you check out, you can see the real thing. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. Han Fei nodded slightly. That's good. Han Fei was about to continue shopping with Xia Shaochan when 203 said, Your Excellency Han Fei, this should be the first time you have come to the Martial Emperor City. Maybe you don't know that if you spend more than 10 million ultra-quality spiritual stones in our shop, you can get a 5% discount. If you spend more than 20 million ultra-quality spiritual stones, you can get a 10% discount, up to a 30% discount. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Does it mean that 60 million is the best deal? The actual payment was only 42 million yuan. Damn it, how can Han Fei afford it? Even Xia Shaochan's eyes narrowed. If the two of them added up, they would definitely have 42 million yuan. Han Fei smiled and said, That's not bad. Let's continue shopping. 203 smiled and said, Take your time. I'll keep an eye on you. After taking 2 steps, Han Fei suddenly looked back and said, By the way, does your shop collect resources? 203 immediately smiled and said, Of course. Most of these resources are collected by us. In the Martial Emperor City, except for the auction house, the price of resources is basically the same, and the fluctuation will never exceed 10%. The recovery price offered by our super resource shop is quite reasonable. Han Fei's heart did a flip. That's good. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan had already made up their minds to spend 60 million yuan today. After all, although the things here were good, not everything was good enough for him to look at. After looking around, Han Fei found that there seemed to be a lot of Pioneer Sea Realm materials here. How many kings must have died? Well, there were also those who molted. But how many times could a king molt in his life? If he wanted to buy all of them, even hundreds of millions wouldn't be enough. So, Han Fei called 203 over again. 203 seemed to know that Han Fei would call him, so he appeared in front of Han Fei in an instant. Han Fei said, Do you have any albums? It will be easier for us to find them this way. 203 immediately smiled and said, Yes. The reason why I didn't show them to you before is that most customers prefer to see them with their own eyes rather than look at albums. Han Fei said directly, Why didn't you say so earlier? Give me the albums. It's such a big place. How long will it take to look at them one by one? 203 had already prepared them and handed a jade slip to Han Fei and Xia Shaochan. Then he quietly retreated, not disturbing the two of them looking through the jade slips. When the two of them quickly scanned the jade slips, they saw that their expressions were constantly changing. Obviously, they were shocked. Xia Shaochan said, Han Fei, I found a treasure. Han Fei said, I found a treasure too. Xia Shaochan said, I found another treasure. Han Fei nodded. Me too. I found something better.